We have roll call, please.
Daryl Peden, present.
Susan Smith, present.
Marcia Locke, present.
C.J. Johnson, present.
Jesus Holguin, present.
Martin Rex Kidzior, present.
Robert Verdi, present.
Susanna Lopez, present.
Maribel Maddox, present.
Jolynn Neal, present.
Nada Canale, present.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
No.
We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Alexis Puente, a 12th grade student from Valley View High School. Alexis, please.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, public comments on agenda items. Do we have any public comments? No public comments. Next item, special session. This is student achievement. And Dr. Katsura, would you like to start, or Maribel Maddox?
I'm just gonna say that Mrs. Maddox, this is a very extensive presentation, board, and I want you to know that the educational services team has worked up until about right now getting this ready, because they wanted it to be just as extensive and as broad as it could be, but with all the detail and information that you deserve to have about what's happening in the district. It's 109 pages of slides, so I hope y'all are, in the mood, and that this is for you, the Board of Education, to have a deeper understanding of student achievement in our school district, and the educational services team led by Mrs. Maddox has done an outstanding job of making sure that all of this is prepared and delivered in a way that will help you have a deeper understanding of what happens in our school district. So Mrs. Maddox, would you like to thank you?
Good evening.
Hi.
It's on? Okay. Welcome to our presentation on student achievement. And like always, we'd like to start with our mission statement. That's our anchor. This is what our mission is for all of our employees in our district, which is to prepare all of our students to graduate high school prepared and to be successful in either higher education or in a viable career path. The 11 commitments are the superintendent's expectations for behavior, for standards in our district, to make sure that we treat each other with these 11 commitments, and not only each other, but also our students and our parents, it's very important to do. Our guiding questions for this evening: who are the students we are serving? What do we know about the needs of the students? And how are we meeting the needs of these students? Let me give you an overview of the presentation. You're going to get information on data, and you have the PowerPoint, and we're going to refer to the handouts. And it's going to be about data in different ways, different data points. Then we're highlighting 3 of our schools. They're going to come and speak to us about how they are informing their decisions on teaching and learning, looking at their data. And then as directors of educational services, we are going to also have our response to data. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Glenn Alegre, and he's going to take us through some exciting data points.
Good evening, board. Now, I know Mrs. Maddox just asked you, or said that the PowerPoint is there. It's a lot more exciting if you don't have the PowerPoint in front of you as I go through the next slide. So I'm going to ask that you put the PowerPoint aside and look up on the screen. Is that okay? All right. And data can be fun, and this is fun because this is actually the exciting part. We're going to celebrate achievements in English language arts. We had a school that had the greatest change in percent met and exceeded in 3rd grade. And that school was, drum roll please. All right. With 28-point increase from the previous year in met and exceeded, that was Hendrick Ranch Elementary in 3rd grade. In 4th grade, same thing, percent met and exceeded. Greatest change with 18-point difference was Seneca Elementary. In 5th grade, the school that had the greatest change in percent met and exceeded with 22 points, and that was Ramona Elementary. All right, thank you. There we go. Moving on to 6th grade, the greatest change in percent met and exceeded with 8 points from the previous year, Badger Springs Middle School. Yeah, yay. All right, grade 7, percent met exceeded, the greatest change with 10 points was Badger Middle School again. And 8th grade, the school that had the greatest change in met exceeded, does anybody want to guess? With 5 points was Badger Springs Middle School. One more time. Great job, Badger Springs. And with 11th grade, remember for CASP, they don't test in grades 9 and 10, so we jump all the way to 11th grade. The school that had the greatest change in percent met and exceeded in 11th grade with a whopping 19 points was Moreno Valley High School. Yay, all right. Now on to mathematics, my personal favorite for a subject. Grade 3, the school that had the greatest change with 16 points was Hendrick Ranch again. They had great work in 3rd grade at Hendrick Ranch this last year. 4th grade, percent met and exceeded the greatest change with 21 points. Oops, and that was Butterfield Elementary. And then grade 5, greatest change with 24 points. Ramona Elementary. All right. Grade 6, with 8 points, Mountain View Middle School. Grade 7, with 1 point, we had a tie between Landmark and Vista Heights. And then grade 8, with 2 points, was Badger Springs Middle School. Clap. All right. Grade 11, with 2 points, was Canyon Springs High School. All right. All right, this is one of my favorite parts. 963. What do you think that number represents? It's the number of exams that had a qualifying score, 3 or plus, in the 2019 AP Test Administration. And that's 23 more from last year, the 37% qualifying score rate. And these are all our schools. We had Canyon Springs at 44%. And I do want to say, according to the superintendent's goals and expectations, we had the goal of 40%. We had a high school meet it this year. Canyon Springs hit the 44% mark. Moreno Valley at 35%, Vista del Lago at 32%, and Valley View at 38%. So, great accomplishments. 1, the number of schools that had double-digit growth in percent met and exceeded school-wide in both ELA and math, and that was Ramona Elementary. So they had super great success in both 5th grade, ELA and math, and then they had double-digit growth in both school-wide. 18, the number of rounds that a Cloverdale student survived to in the district spelling bee. I remember that from last year. It went 18 rounds. It's awesome. 5, the number of schools that had double-digit growth in 3rd grade math or ELA. We had, there must be a school missing. Chaparral, Hendrick Ranch, Hidden Springs, and Ramona. 2, the number of schools designated as an avid site of distinction. And that was Sunnymead and Vista Heights. 17, the number of schools that met the district attendance rate goal of 95%. And here are all the schools that met it. All right. 9, The number of schools that had double-digit growth in 4th grade math or ELA. We had Box Springs, Butterfield, Hidden Springs, La Jolla, Marino, Northridge, Seneca, Sunnymead, and Sunny Meadows. One out of 10 districts in the nation that are national districts to watch, and that district is Moreno Valley Unified. 399. The number of students that might not have graduated if not for all of our alternative programs. We got Moreno Valley Online Academy with 63 students that they graduated this year. Bayside with 73, Alessandro with 2, March Mountain with 119, and Adult Ed with 141. So 399. 227. The number of science and engineering fair projects submitted for the 2018-19 district event. And that was 44 MVUSD students participated in this Riverside County Science and Engineering Fair, and it represents 12.8% increase in the county participation over the previous year. And we had the winner, 5th grader at Mavoa, Michaela Ruth, that earned a gold medal at this event. Give it up, yeah? Clap? All right, thank you. The number of students invited to the Smithsonian for the Mission 13 SSEP Student Spaceflight Experiment Program, there were 3 of them, and they all came from Palm Middle School. '71. The percent reduction in expulsions in the past 3 years. We went from 163 in 16-17 all the way down to 48 in 18-19. Yes, it's awesome. Thank you, Student Services. The number of schools that sent a national history team to Washington, D.C. There was 1. And it was Vista Heights Middle School. 3. The number of schools that received a P21 distinction. That was Vista Heights, Moreno Valley High, and Valley View High School. And there were only 18 schools in the nation that received this distinction, and 3 of them came from Moreno Valley. That is awesome. 24. The number of schools that met the district map goal of 50%. And there are all the schools. All right. 7. The number of schools that had double-digit growth in 5th grade math or ELA. Chaparral, Hendrick Ranch, Hidden Springs, Honey Hollow, Ramona, and Towngate. 15. The percent of students that scored a 4, a well-developed oral and written skills on the LPAC. And LPAC is the English Language Proficiency Assessment that all English learners take in California. Used to be the CELT. And we had 14.9% reach level 4 this past administration. Level 3, we had 40%. 10,529. The number of participants that attended 529 PD offerings in the 2018-19 school year. And that's Moreno Valley. Thank you, Dr. Buster and team. 6. The number of schools that are national schools to watch. And we have all 6 of our middle schools there. Yes, good job. 11. The number of students that had a qualifying score, a 3 or higher, in AP Spanish in 8th grade. And that was at Vista Heights Middle School with our AP Spanish. 4 of them scored a 3, 4 scored a 4, and 3 scored a 5. And all 11 of them qualified, so that's great. 1. College Board Advanced Placement National District of the Year for Medium-Sized District, 1 out of 10,000 in the nation. Oops, and that was Moreno Valley Unified School District. All right, I'm going to turn it over now to Ramona Elementary, the one that had experienced double-digit growth school-wide and also the highest in 5th grade in ELA and math. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce my team. It's something you'll see. It's as part of what we see at Ramona, and I know our district theme is Lift to Rise, and we believe that the rise of being the only elementary school that had double-digit growth in both language arts and math is due to our lifting together as team, both our relationships with students as well as our relationships with our staff, and that's why I value our team. I've got a great group of teachers across the board, but this is representation of one of my all-star. One of the reasons why our fifth grade did so well is because we had a new addition to our fifth grade team last year in Jess Sanchez, and our professional development is bar none the best in the world, the history of the universe. Jasmine Fincher, good job. And Vicki Perkins is our assistant principal, doing a wonderful job and in supporting with a lot of combined expertise in what we're sharing today. But bottom line, I just want to share a couple things as we do seek to lift to rise. I'm a 2-year beekeeper, and I have a special gift for our school board members here. Just so you know, that bees, I have learned, are great communicators. Even though there's like 50,000 bees in each of one of my beehives, they communicate. They do a very vigorous dance and communicate, and that helps them to improve their productivity in the hive. And that's what we seek to do, is we seek to improve our productivity by communicating better, and we've seen that. And I've doubled my honey output. That's why I have some gifts for you today. That's from that's harvested, fresh, clean, pure honey from just this last month. And it's something that I'm very, very impressed with at our school, that we have improved. And we have a lot of other things in place I'm going to have my team share about as well. So I'm going to ask for Jasmine Fincher to proceed.
Thank you. So again, with the theme that relationships are at the center of what we do, thinking about how we build our collaborative teams, our PLCs are very strong. Teachers are working together to problem solve, create common formative assessments to inform their instruction, their first best instruction, and continue to progress monitor so we can catch and intervene with students early. Moving forward, that helps inform goals. So our PLC, or our teacher grade levels, have created goals, which leads to individual teacher goals, which helps inform coaching and professional development at our site. And most importantly, students also create goals too. So they are an integral part of the learning process. They are our major focus, and so they're a part of that.
Okay, so one of the things that we also did was we went around to the grade levels during their grade level PLCs, and we were asking them what could be prohibiting them from doing their first best instruction the way that they needed to in order to go deeper. And part of that was they felt like the pacing was too fast. So they needed to slow down the pacing. So we looked at their, primarily in language arts, because they had already settled it in math, I think. But we looked at their pacing guide, and it was going too fast. They felt like it was Monday to Friday, and then the kids were testing, but not really grasping the key concepts. So we looked at that, and we slowed it down at a pace that worked for them. And then beyond that, that way their instruction could be the way that they needed it to be for the students. But then we needed to assess if that was working so that it would translate well to the CASP. So then we looked at the IABs. That was the best tool that we could use to see if it would translate from their instruction in the classroom to the CASP. So then we created a calendar for their IABs so that they did had intentional, focused IABs on a regular basis, and they all created a calendar to go along with that.
Okay, once we handle the academics, then we went into the social emotional aspect of it. So when we started doing this, I started much of my doctorate studies is in restorative justice practices. So I started implementing that last year in the form of restorative circles, and then we tapped into the Harmony curriculum to where we started bringing that into the mix. Also, I'm a part of the CTA IFT think tank where we focus on strength-based teaching, and we come together once a month. And we talk about different strategies we can use to strength-based teach our kids. So we find out what they're good at, and we lift to rise with that. We go ahead and we find, instead of looking at the model as being deficit model, we look at the strength-based model. We know that our kids come to us with a lot of ACEs, so we address those and make sure that we create positive learning environments in our classrooms. And we make sure to always, for every kid, we do a 5-to-1 for every negative. We have a 5 positive. Sometimes some of the kids may be 18-to-1, 20-to-1, but we make sure that when they leave our club, they leave us at a better place than what they came to us in.
And I just want to close, since Dr. Buster's here. When I first came to Ramona, Dr. Buster kind of took charge because I wasn't able to be there the first meeting, and the poster that was created by the staff focused on teamwork as the hallmark of what Ramona was all about. So my focus was to build on what was already there as a strength. And so we started Flex Days, Flex Wednesdays the next year. They already had strength, but they needed that time, and they valued that. And now we're working on vertical teams aligned with the state dashboard areas. We have 4 teams, and they each have responsibilities that they're working on. So we're growing with the teamwork, both vertically, horizontally, as well as with our students. But that's in a nutshell. There's a lot more going on, but we just wanted to share the exciting things going on at Ramona. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Maddox, I had a quick question for
definitely.
based on one of the things that Mr. Sanchez said regarding that our young people at your school have come in with a lot of ACEs. Are you guys taking ACE scores for the students that are attending your school? Are you guys doing the ACE scores? And then also, how does that exactly inform your instruction?
We have not taken formal ACE scores. We take surveys of the kids, so we to build personal relationships with them. We do have talks with them, and they do tell us what they come with. So a lot of that comes from the Freedom Rider strategies that we went through. So just a couple weeks ago, last week, we did the line game with them. That informed us a lot of what was going on with them at home. A lot of the questions were geared towards the ACEs, so we're able to see that firsthand and see what was coming up.
Thank you.
I want to thank Ramona for sharing. It's important for schools to share. They also do it at their principal meeting for a couple of reasons. One, in order to know how you improved, you need to be able to know what it is so you can replicate the results. So Ramona has in place what they've done so they can replicate it. And it's also important for them to share with other schools so other schools can also learn, with successful practices. I'm going to continue with the CASP. So this is the state spring testing. It happens in the spring in English language arts and in math. One more time, it's grades 3 through 8 and also grade 11. You have here CASP test results in ELA for 4 years, and you can see there's a 6% positive change. We have math, 7% positive change in 4 years. And we have 11 grade levels that improved on this test in English language arts and in math. And here are the grade levels. Now here are the student groups. If you notice in ELA and math, we had 17 groups that improved. I'm going to highlight 2 because we said as a district last year that these were our target student groups and that we would focus and provide intervention. And if you notice, our African American students improved in both ELA and in math, and also our students with disabilities improved in ELA. Here you have a visual of, in the bar graphs, of the previous slide. You also have this in your folder that actually gives you a summary of what I'm saying, which is what grade levels improved and in what areas. So everything that is here on the bar graph, you have a copy, but it's also narrative, because sometimes I think summaries are also good to have because it gives you the big picture. So for English language arts, you could see the grade levels 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 11th. And what you want to see is improvement. And as you look here, most of the grade levels did improve in ELA. And in math, by looking at this, I can say the students meeting or exceeding standards in math improved in 3rd grade, in 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade. How about our students with disabilities? Here is their CASP scores for ELA. And we have, because you want to see patterns also, so you have 2 years right here, 4 years, and you can see growth in ELA, and math stayed about the same. Here is our African American group, improved in both ELA and in math. So now it's a graph of what the previous slides had said. And now we're going to dive into the school summary. I did the global. I did more big picture. So Glenn, I'm going to ask you to come and talk about school summary data now.
Thank you. So what you have here is 5 years worth of data. I know it's going to start getting a little bit small when you look at the bars, but I highlighted the last percentage, the last year. So that's the percent you see up on top is the last and final year. And what you want to look at here is that steady stair step. And you can see it beautifully, like if you look at Northridge, every year that stair step gets just a little bit higher with a bigger jump in the final year. Another one that stands out when I look at this is Hidden Springs. They had a little up and down, but then the previous year they shot up to 48%. And as you see, many of our schools experience that steady upward pattern. So when I look at this data globally, that's a good thing. It's actually a great thing to see that all our schools at the elementary level are moving upward. Looking at math, very similar again. We still have that slope upwards, and that's apparent in many of our elementary schools, and that's what we want to see. We want to see that we are still progressing year after year. Middle school, we have here all 6 of our middle schools, and we see data going up, down. We do have some rises up in the past couple years, so that's always great to see. Looking at math, Vista Heights, we've seen that upward gain here, upward. So things are looking bright, especially when we had a 4% gain and 4% gain the previous year, 2 this last year, 7 total for the last several years. We're seeing that steady gain. 5-year high school, as you know, is the darkest of the bars are the one that's the most recent year. And you can see gains, a huge gain with Moreno Valley High there. Another gain and a little dip, but they're holding steady there. And then with math, we see Canyon Springs with a jump from the previous year. Same with Moreno Valley, a jump from the previous year. Holding steady at Valley View, and then a little jump for Vista Del Lago as well.
Clint, can I jump in real quick?
Yes, please.
So we're showing and we're kind of describing that there's an increase from the previous year, but what about some of these years where we're much better off in like 2015, but then we're seeing that now in 2019 we're not quite there, and this has been shown in several different slides since we've started the presentation. So I don't know if we're prepared to kind of dive into that, and if that's fine. I just wanted to pose the question, because if we do have some explanation and some insight on that, I think I would be more than willing to listen to that. I'd love to hear kind of what may have caused the decrease from 2015 in the middle school and high school regarding CASP. And there's several slides, and maybe we'll have opportunity at the end of this presentation. I know we're getting close to that 100 slide mark, and we can have a discussion about that.
I mean, there's so many different reasons as to why things happen, things change. When you're looking at just a single grade level, and I'm sure some of the high schools will attest, not all grade levels are the same. You have some really strong classes some years, some that aren't as strong, and that's just the way the ebb and flow of a school, classes coming in and out. But if we have more time, I'd love to sit down with you and look at this way more in depth. Like you said, we have 100 slides to go through. And let's turn it over to
Before you do that, Glenn, I was hoping you would add some of these things to give a picture, but I'm just going to add something that Mr. Peden asked about. But I think when you were looking at the middle school and high school, you may have seen some differences as far as, you know, like you said, 2015. But if you go back to slide 46 for me, please. So if you look at English language arts, there's a 6% positive change over the past 4 years. Now, while you might see a decrease or you see some instructional maybe issues or some student issues or in the middle and high school, but overall you're seeing an increase from 2015 to 2019 in the district. So, and I do want to point out, Glenn, that in Moreno Valley, our district grew 3.2% in 2019. Isn't that right? We grew 3 point or 4 point, how much?
It's rounded off, so 3.6 or 7 maybe.
Yeah, and I do want to let the board know that in the county, school districts grew, in Riverside County, they grew 1.4% in English language arts, and in the state, they only grew 1%. So the growth that you see in a school district like Moreno Valley, where 84% of the students are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and many of them are foster youth and homeless, that's significant. So I wanted to point that out because you can look at different, we do look at middle schools and high schools, but overall I'm looking at the progress that's been made collectively among all schools. And then if you go to the next slide, 47, we grew 1.9%, I think, in mathematics. Is that right?
Yes.
And in the county, in Riverside County, districts only grew 1.3%, and in the state of California last year, districts only grew 1% in mathematics overall. We grew 1.9%. So it's significant what's happened here and the changes in student achievement. While they are not what we want them to be, and they're not where we need them to be, we do know that significant growth has happened over time. And yes, there are areas in mathematics, and we know this as we look at the CAS test for students in middle school and high school as it becomes increasingly more challenging for them, and we are working on that. So I just want to make sure that we know that the growth that's been made and the significance of that growth and where we are with the county and the state. And I point that out because I'm very proud of that, of what's happened here in the school district and since 2015.
I just like to, I don't want to speak for, Mr. Peden, but I think because this is a study session, it's our point, and time to learn. I think, we have grown, and we're proud of the growth. But for us as board members to understand it, that's why I think the question is aimed, because I'm an educator, so I'm used to this stuff in the scores, but not everyone is, So I think that's why you're going to get questions. Doesn't demean what you've done. We've accomplished
I think it's
so far.
fine. The questions. I just wanted to add those responses because I don't know if you see that when you look at the data, and I have these notes here, and I'm just very, I just want you to see that. So I'm just adding to what you're saying,
Can I ask a question about the test?
Yes, ma'am.
So is the test this year the same test that they gave last year? And is it the same test they gave the year before? Does the test change, or is it exactly the same test year after year after year?
For the most part, the test is the same. They do put in some new questions, take off some old questions, but before they actually release it, they always do the statistics to make sure that it can be comparable from year to year, so that you can compare the results year after year and be confident in the scores that the students get, and what you see school-wide will be that they can be comparable. Because if the test changed dramatically, then you have a validity and a reliability issue. And before they put anything like this out there, they already go through all those statistics to make sure that happens. So are they exactly the same? No. And what makes it also hard is it's a computer adaptive test. So not all kids see all the same questions. It adapts. If a kid gets it right, it gives them a harder question the next time. If they get it wrong, it gets easier. So with all those different variations, you can't see, it's not the exact same test year to year. But they put in the work to make sure that you get reliable results year to year.
I could, just real quick, I want to have also a follow-up. Just one of my concerns is that when we look at the overall average for the district, we know that when we're looking at percentages, that there could be one school that's pulling that percentage up.
Good.
Right, so when we look at elementary and we look at Northridge, you know, they're at 55% this year. And then you'll look at another school that's at 27. So my worry is that when we're talking about, you know, meeting standards and these sort of things, that we're lacking the equity. And so overall, we see that we have growth, but that may be being pulled up by one specific site. And so really trying to dive in and understand that so that we can ensure equity across the district is what I'm interested in learning. So if you have any insight on that, that'd be great if we can continue that conversation today or another time, but I definitely wanted to put that on the table.
You know, it's true that you do have some schools that are higher than others, but you have to remember that all of these schools all have somewhere between 600 to 800 students, maybe 900 in some cases. And so it, I want to say it all averages out in the end, where you can't say that one school is totally bringing it up, because you have a lot of different schools that have the same end value to smooth it out.
I think if you go back to the earlier slides where you mentioned which schools had the above 5% growth in language arts and math, you will see that the schools that had additional growth, and it wasn't just those two schools. In fact, Ramona had double-digit growth, and they're not Northridge, and so they weren't bringing up that, because Northridge was already high. So, yeah.
I'm assuming, you know, as a result of this presentation, as we look at the data, one of the things that you will share with us is, you know, what are we doing for those schools? What support are we providing for those schools that, you know, are lower? You know, because, you know, through not, you know, blaming anyone, it is what it is. You know, there's a lot of challenges. You know, not everything is not the same. You know, so you know, that's what I'm assuming we will get to that. Of how are we helping those schools that need extra help?
Yes, stay tuned.
That's what I figured. I thought you were getting there, especially like what Ramona shared was, you know, phenomenal. You know, they really have a wonderful system. So, you know, learning from each other. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that.
As we like to say in Ed Services, actually Esperanza says this a lot, there's one thing to be data informed, but then to be data driven. And we'll be getting to that data driven part in the next part.
Glenn, can I just add something really quick? And
Yes.
I just wanted to add to what Mr. Peden was saying just a little bit. When we look at the scores for the schools, and I know some of the other schools are lower, but they're still growing. And so that adds to the overall median. So I know that there are other schools higher performing, but all schools are growing. So I wanted to look at that too a little bit.
Mrs. Neal, I mean, you could add to Mr. Peden's question, how much have you grown at Creekside?
Over time, when I started, we were lower. I have to have my exact percentages in front of me because I don't want to misquote. What we have grown over time, and there's different programs that we've put in place from the time that I started till now. And we're very proud of that. It's not the same growth as Northridge, but we are seeing growth. And that's important because we have some challenges that maybe other schools don't necessarily have. So you have to work with those challenges just a little bit differently than some other schools do. You have to get a little bit creative, put some additional supports that maybe somebody else doesn't have. So that's important too. So I just wanted to add that little piece.
Creekside has gone up quite a bit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any additional questions? And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Kerr, Canyon Springs High School.
When we consider what are we doing on our campuses instructionally, we have to really look at it from a coordinated approach. We have to always look at it through a lens of where are we at and where are we going. So on our campus, we look at it from a research-based, data-driven perspective. So this coordinated approach that we take, what's the goal? What actions will we take? And how do we ensure that our teachers have the tools that they need to successfully implement what we're asking them to do? The first step is, what are our areas for growth based on the data? Our math growth, I know 2%, highest in the district. I'm not excited about that yet. So we have work to do. I'm really glad we grew, but we can do better than that. We look at all kinds of data. We look at the dashboard. We look at the superintendent's goals and expectations. We always look at multi-year trends. Did we have an off year? What was the reason for the off year? When I look at English, this past year we grew by 5 points, but the prior year we dropped by 11. We also adopted a new curriculum that year, the Springboard. That's going to have an effect. So we're rebounding from that a little bit. Very blessed with an active, involved English department that took this to heart. They were devastated when we dropped. They're owning it and they're fixing it. We don't hoard the data. We share it with our stakeholders, our staff members. They can't make improvements if they don't know why they need to make those improvements. So we always want to make sure that we're sharing that information. So we start with common goals in all of our curricular areas. One goal school-wide that's common for everyone, and this is developed by staff. We do this through our academic leadership team, which is my department chairs and program leads. And based on all of the data that we've looked at for this year, last year our goal was to use evidence-based arguments. So this year we expanded that and got a little bit more specific because of math. Math is all about evidence-based arguments. So we expanded it to written and verbal evidence-based arguments, proving what's going on. What we're noticing is that our students are really good at solving the problem, but they really need to understand what's happening while they're solving that problem. So that was the reason for the goal, and it needs to fit everybody. This is a school-wide thing. Everybody needs to be working on the same thing. Common practices. We don't want just random acts of teaching on our campus. Okay, it's Tuesday, I think we'll dissect a cat, you know, or something random like that. We have to have a reason for doing what we're doing. I have a science background. That was that just kind of comes out. We'll blow something up. So we always have to start with letting the students know, do you have a purpose here today? Why are we here? So all of our teachers, all of our classrooms are expected to have a learning target. When the students walk in, it should be posted or verbalized or somehow made clear to the students, why am I here? When I'm working with new teachers, I kind of explain it as an agenda in a meeting. Do you ever go to a meeting and you walk in, you have no idea why you're there, and when you leave, you still have no idea? We don't want our kids to have that same feeling when they go through a class on our campus. So a learning target should be posted with a very specific statement of, here today in this one single period, why am I here and what am I going to learn? We want our depth of knowledge level, our rigor, to be up around the 2 or 3 range, meaning that we're getting beyond simple recall and reproduction. We don't want to be identifying, just pointing arrows at the dead cat. What is this body part? Bad analogy today. I don't know where that's coming from. So we want them thinking about things. We want them getting into the reasoning, whether it's basic reasoning, complex reasoning. We want them thinking about what's going on. So structured collaboration, conversations between students or other types of interactions between students is going to help us with this. We want them interacting with each other, explaining to each other, making presentations. Quite often, if you walk through our campus, you'll see that most of our desks are in groups of 4 because we want our kids talking to each other, interacting with each other. I was in an English classroom a couple of weeks ago doing an observation with one of my younger teachers. She had an amazing project going where they had to move between different posters, but it was Instagram. They had to respond to a prompt, but they had to respond as if they were responding on Instagram. And it was fascinating looking at how they were putting their thoughts together. So just communicating constantly about what they're doing and then writing and writing and writing. We do a lot of writing. We do writing in math. They write out explanations for how they solved a problem. Again, they have to get back into understanding what they're doing and why they're doing it. And then professional development is a huge part of this. John Hattie is one of my personal heroes. I'm a nerd. And he looks at big data, metadata, and from gathering all different kinds of studies from throughout the world, he looks at them and uses something called effect size to determine what's most effective. One of the most effective things you can do for kids is to have a collaboratively have teacher efficacy. Are our teachers good at what they do? And so we do a lot of professional development. It's ongoing, it's frequent, different types, high quality, teacher-led. We use Innovate Ed. We use our PD specialist. I have Catherine Bain. She's fabulous. Love that girl. And I don't know why I wrote this word here. It says balance. But it's not the commitments. I know all of you, but I'm still nervous. But when it comes to professional development, one of my frustrations as a teacher was being asked to do something and then not being given the tools to do it. So I take it very personally that we want to make sure that our teachers always have the tools to do what we're asking them to do. Most of it is teacher-led. Tomorrow is a flex day for us, and we have our twice annual mini conference where we have teachers leading other teachers. We have multiple sessions. They get to choose what they want to do, but they'll be going from, it's just like going to a conference, but it's on our campus and it lasts an hour and a half, looking at what's happening in classrooms. So nothing magical about what we're doing other than just keeping really a laser-like focus on what's our goal, what are we doing, why are we doing it, and how are we going to get the job done. And that's Canyon Springs. So, Glenn? Are there any questions? Okay.
All right, next we're going to look at the data reports. If you look inside your folder on the right side towards the back, you're going to see several sheets of paper with reports, and I'm going to look at each of the different ones in turn, show you how to read these so that we can understand how to look at the charts, know what it's talking about. I'm hoping that a lot of it could be self-explanatory, but you'll see it at the right side, the right jacket, is that what it's called, of the folder? Right pocket, thank you. The first one I want to look at, and I think this is going to be the last sheet in the group, is this is the performance of all schools. Now the graphs that you saw before just showed you percent met and exceeded. What this will show you down the left side are all the schools and then how they performed, and look at the different colors. And if you look at the legend or the header, you have this, and don't blame the colors on me, I'm matching what was on the CDE website, so if you don't like the colors, blame state of California. But you'll have the standard not met in this orangish kind of color, the nearly met, which is right next to it, the standard met, which is a kind of a green, and then exceeded, which is in blue. So you'll see that how it breaks down for all the different schools. And then you have the total number of kids on the first column after the school name. And then right next to it, you'll see a percentage where it says 68.4 or 31.6. What that number does is it sums up the two numbers in that column, as well as on the other side, the 31.6 sums up the two numbers on that column. And so that's how you read this. And so you have ELA with the first set of graphs, and then you have mathematics on the right. Are there questions on how to read this? So you can see, yeah, we already saw these percentages, but now you can see the other side and what that looks like as well. Questions? Another report, oh, I even blew it up. I should have done that. That would have been much easier. Another report that you're going to see, and I'm not sure where this one is in the packet, but you're going to see it's a multi-year district report. And what this is it's same data, except this is by grade level for the entire district, with the district being at the bottom. And what I like about this one is that it is a 4-year report. So the way you read this one is you have third grade in this first row, broken down into the 4 years, 2016, 17, 18, and 19. If you look at the next number, it tells you how many kids or students tested at that grade level. Next to it is you're going to get that average scale score, and then you're going to get the same bar as before. The thing that's different here is that you have here the final column in the English language arts and also this final column in the mathematics. It's going to say change since. And so, let me see that. Was I smart? Oh, I was. All right, here we go. Blew it up for you guys. What this change since means is what is the change been since 2016? And you'll see in third grade, the change has been 12.5. And the way you get that is if you take the 37.5 minus the 25, that's the change since 2016. What is the change since 2017? It's been 9.9. And the change since 2018 is 2.7. And that's the difference between 37.5 and 34.8. So that can help you gauge to see how each grade level is changing for the past 4 years in the district. Something else to note, math reads the exact same way. What I did here with the average scale score is you'll notice a bar that comes out. What that bar shows you is how far into that color range that set of kids scored in that year. And how close they are to hitting the next bar. So you can see this average scale score is closer to that line, where this is a little bit bigger, which means this is a lot closer to hitting into the green mark than these previous years. Again, showing the growth in that grade level. And you can see the same thing as well with the mathematics. Are there questions on how to read this chart? And then stapled to this, you're going to get this part. And so the way Smarter Balanced works is it's reported out as overall scores, but then you also have it broken down into the different claims. There are 4 claims in mathematics and 4 claims in ELA. However, for mathematics, you'll see that there's only 3 listed. It's because they combined problem solving and modeling. So you'll see that there's only going to be 3 here. But what this shows you in this graph down below is that for reading, they broke it down into students that are below standard, near standard, or above standard. Where the yellow is below standard, this gray area, aptly named gray, is near standard, and then the blue is going to be above standard. And so looking at this, you can see what I like to see is the yellow bar decreasing while the blue bar is increasing, because that means you're going to have less students dropping from 52% to 37% in reading and going from 9 to 18. So doubling in those 4 years, doubling the number of kids that are above standard in reading. And then we also have the claim of writing, listening, and research and inquiry. And so you can see how the performance is for the past 4 years. Questions about how to read the charts? Okay. Moving on, another chart you're going to see, and this is going to be on long sheets of paper, the legal size, so it's folded at the bottom. This is the 2-year student group. This is the 2-year student group report. Oh, good. And so when you look at this, same kind of thing as before. So if you understand how to read this, where these 2 add up to that, these 2 add up to this, you still have the number total. You have the 1-year change, which is there as well. But the beauty of this one is that it also, oops, oh, that's it. It breaks it down into the different student groups. So you'll see the grade levels up on top. Next, you'll see it broken down by gender. Then you'll see it broken down by ethnicity, followed by their English learner, and then some of the programs, students with disabilities and socioeconomically disadvantaged at the very bottom. So you can see how those different student groups performed with 2 years. And so that's the long one. And then the page behind it are going to be that same claim report with the reading, writing, or the concepts, procedures in math, and problem solving. So I try to make sure that the graphs read the same. So once you can read one graph, you should be able to translate that learning to all the different graphs as well. Any questions?
I just need clarification on socially, economically
disadvantaged.
Disadvantaged. Thank you. What's that definition?
Good question. According to the state of California, a student is in the socioeconomically disadvantaged group if they're free and reduced lunch, or their parents have their parents are not a high school graduate. So it's either or. So when they fill out their form, when they enroll into the district, they'll fill that. We know who are the free and reduced lunch kids are, but then the parent ed level, they mark that on the enrollment form. And so that's how we collect that data and put into queue, and then we report that to the state.
So all of our students get free or reduced lunch, correct?
Not all. I believe we're around 80-something% free and reduced lunch.
Well, I mean, like every student here gets it because we're at a certain benchmark, or is that not correct? That's
yeah,
not
that
accurate?
is true for, yes.
And
yes.
so, and we do require everybody to, even though everybody gets free lunch, we do require them to qualify for free or reduced lunch?
Not anymore. That's, the high schools still do.
For the high schools, we still require the application to be filled out. Breakfast is provided to all students for free.
Our SED, we're not going by really free or reduced lunch because do we know? Or
Well,
are we just going by their parents who didn't graduate high school or just graduated high school?
we offer the food to everybody, but when it's recorded in our student information system, that information is then sent up. And we get the information from eTrition, which is the food services database, and then they have the collection because I wish, you want,
What they do now is come to the microphone, please. Thank you. The way it works now is the families, elementary to middle school, do not complete a free and reduced lunch application. However, they are asked to complete a survey. And then that survey data is what helps to inform the district free and reduced lunch data.
Thank you.
any other questions? Also included in your data packet, we put in the AP scores. The first report was the detailed. It'll show you by AP exam on the left, and then by high school, and then the different scores, the breakdown distribution for the scores. So you can see how many students scored at a 1 all the way to a 5, and then the final two columns are how many exams were passed, and then what that passing rate was. So you can see that by high school, for all the different AP exams. And then the other chart next to it doesn't have all the detail, but it shows you a 3-year trend of AP data. And so you'll see that that's on the landscape legals paper. And you see the different colors. So you can see again, the 3 years worth of data, all the different exams that are taken, and then the pass rates, and then the change for 1 year as well on the 3-year report. And then at the very bottom, you can see how we did district-wide. Questions?
I have a question. And I probably should know this, but are students that are enrolled in AP classes, are they required to take the test?
Are they required to take the tests?
No, okay.
No. We
encourage them to.
And we pay for it because we want them to take it because we know that it helps them prepare for college, and we want them to take it. Last year we had students take it in courses we didn't even offer and passed it. Like we had a student at Valley View take the AP Chinese exam and passed it. We don't offer AP Chinese.
Well, I just think it's commendable that the idea that we open up the access in this district for students, just to enroll in the classes. So, I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and we do get a majority of them taking. I don't remember the exact percentage, but a majority of them do end up taking the test.
I think it's good. And I'm glad that we pay for it.
And then the final report you're going to see in your packet is a breakdown of last year's LPAC results. And you're going to see it by school and the 4 different levels. And it's just describing how well developed or how developed their English proficiency is. And then it also breaks it down into the subtests of oral performance and the written performance. And so you can see how the different schools are doing with this colorful graph. And again, this is the LPAC. This is what replaced the CELT, but this is the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California. Thank you, Lilia.
Isn't that the first year of results, or is that the second year?
This is our second year of results. But as Lilia wants, if she wants to jump in, they had to retool the scoring, the formula for what broke down, or how they broke down the different levels. So you can't really compare 2018 LPAC results to the 2019 results.
Man, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions? I'll give you guys a minute to look over the data. All right, if there are no other questions, I'm going to move on to our next focus school, Badger Springs.
Before you do that, I want to thank you for all this data. I mean, it's going to take me a while to digest it all, but thank you. It's a lot of work, but thank you.
Glenn, I want to add, I don't know if the board knows this, but how long have you been here?
I just finished 3 years.
Yeah. And I don't know if you all know, but we didn't have this kind of data before in our district and the reports that we get. So everyone would agree that it has given us more opportunity to make sure that what we're doing is moving forward. So I want to thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lindsay Huntsman. I am the Assistant Administrator of Instructional Improvement and Academic Coaching at Badger Springs Middle School. And I'm here to talk to you about our math. Okay. So the very first thing I'm going to share with you is actually some of our current data. So if you look at, and I'm just going to highlight the very first box. So this is actually our students coming into us. So if we're looking at our 6th grade students, our 5th graders coming in are actually at 16% of the meeting standards. So that means 84% of our students already coming into us are not at grade level. They're not meeting our standards. So our teachers work very, very hard. In the next slide, I'll share with you some of the things that we have been doing over this past year and prior years before that. So you'll see on here one of our very first teacher-created assessments where we actually use Illuminate. 35% of those students met the standards. So right there, we're already seeing an increase in the instruction on that unit. And that's actually a huge unit. It's on ratio and proportional reasoning. So it's a bulk of the 6th grade Common Core assessment. And then when they gave their first IAB, you'll see that it breaks it down into 3 categories. So I focused on the above and the near standard. So 7% of our students are already at above the standard for 6th grade, and then 30% are near those standards. And then I did the same for 7th and 8th grade, just so that you can see this is what our students are at when they came into us, and this is where they are right now. So what are we doing this year? Of course, we're still we're continuing to implement our IABs, But before I even keep going, I want to share with you, over the summer, we actually started a new scope and sequence. Our teachers came in over the summer, and before the data was even released, I was already on the phone with Glenn, and I was like, this date, we looked at the data already. So from there, our teachers were like, we didn't spend enough time on this unit. You know, one of them was functions. So 8th grade, which was our grade level that had the highest increase, we redeveloped our entire scope and sequence this school year because we knew that we needed to focus on functions and solving equations more this school year. The second thing, of course, we're still analyzing our data at the end of each assessment. So we're doing that. But we at Badger Springs also focus on common language. So what they're doing in language arts, we want that to carry over into math classrooms. So we focused on step up to writing. At our school, communicating, reasoning, and problem solving in mathematics is actually not where we want it to be. So we have started what's called solve and explain a math problem. So it's a step-by-step guided template of what the students need to do in order to solve that problem. We explicitly teach vocabulary. So we use the English 3D routines where the teacher will describe the word, give the student the definition, and the students have to create their own definition based on that vocabulary word. So it helps the students generate that and learn that vocabulary word so that when they're speaking about their problems in math class, they're using that vocabulary word. We have guided articulation days. And I say guided because it's myself, I'm a part of that, a professional development specialist, and then we collaborate with the team lead for that math department to kind of create a scope and an articulation day for the entire team. So it's very planned out and detailed. So one of the other things that we found this school year, the last school year, is that we didn't focus enough on performance tasks. And that's 20% of your Smarter Balance assessment. So we need to make sure that our students are ready to go on that performance task. So this year we've incorporated those into our articulation days into our classrooms. Inquiry-based learning. So this is something that my 8th grade team started last year. And we start off the unit with, I wish I would have brought some for you to see. But we start off with some sorting cards. And the students have to figure out what to do with those cards. So for example, we looked at square roots. That's one of the very first topics in 8th grade. And we just gave the students all of the cards. Or say, here you go. Try something with this. What would you do? And it surprised some of the teachers that the kids were able to figure out what a square root was before they even actually did a square root problem. So that's our inquiry-based learning. And then we also do what we're calling applied learning. So 7th grade, one of the topics is unit rates. Our students actually go out into the PE area and they'll focus on their unit rates, whether it's their mile runs, how fast can they run per hour. They'll start calculating all of those things. So we're really becoming more cross-curricular. That's one of the things that we're doing this year. Any questions?
I have a question, but this is probably more of a question for Mrs. Maddox. But I mean, this is great, as an instructional focus for a school. But I'm wondering, do all of our middle schools do something similar to this?
I can say that they do. So what they do, we have 3 different schools here at different levels, but also, very different as far as student needs. And all that data that you got from Glenn tonight, these schools also have their own. They get their own school data, and they have to analyze it, and they have to figure it out. What does it mean for our students? And then they have to develop a plan. And I think the intent was to show these 3 different schools to see how they have approached it.
Okay, but so what you're saying is that basically, as Badger, they have growth, which is great. But since they have some, I guess, what's the word I want is, it's up to them a little bit as what they do and how they do it.
Correct, but I think you're going to see some things that we are going to make sure that all schools have.
So there's some common expectations and monitoring,
and that's coming
to ensure that every school is doing something at least similar but different.
Correct, to meet their needs.
Okay.
Every school has to, and Lindsay, you know this. Every school, because when you interviewed, remember what I asked you? Yeah. So I remember. So Dr. Locke, every school has 4 goals, and that's common to each of them. It's part of the LCAP. It's part of the strategic plan. And those 4 goals are how they design what they do. And then they have 13 outcomes that they're all helping TK through 12 achieve. And that's how they come up with those, what are we doing this year? Because each of them gets what their baseline is and where they need to improve.
Thank you.
And then I'd also like to share with you, Badger Springs, if you were to look back at the data, you're obviously going to see a growth and then a dip back down. And so, last year we became part of the CSI program. So we're a CSI school, and we've really put in a lot of work into our CSI plans. And our teachers, it's not just a piece of paper, like they're actually living and breathing that document that is part of our plan of how we're going to improve our math scores specifically. And then we're also part of the Callie Reads grant. So we're really focusing on literacy and literacy across the board. So one of the things I didn't put in here, which was one of my slides that we had to delete, is that through our Callie Reads grant, we're focusing on what we call at our school TREC. So it's an annotation form. And basically what they're doing in language arts when they annotate a reading so that they can, build up their comprehension skills, we're applying that in math as well. So when our students have a word problem, the expectation is that they use their annotation skills into their math classroom as well. And a couple weeks ago, beginning of October, I was actually in a language arts classroom, and we took the math standards and we annotated what the students should have been able to do for their next unit. So then they already went into their math class and are like, I know what an integer is, right away before they even started their math class. So, under those 2 programs, we're working very hard to increase our scores, and I hope to see you again here next year.
I like too the idea that the teachers, because what happens in the classroom, and so for the teachers to develop it and work on it, analyze their results. I mean, it's just really powerful. So I'm just very impressed.
Yeah, and the teachers will come to us and they'll say, look, we're getting ready to do this unit. It's a big unit, and we're very data driven. I've been there for, oh my gosh, probably 8 years now. I was the math coach there, and then this last 2 years I've been as a AIAC. But we're working very hard, and they'll even say like, we're getting ready for this unit, and we just want a little bit of time to really focus and hone on what's going to be our best practices to reach our students. We've got a couple different programs that we utilize Imagine Math, and then we also know that 84% of our 6th graders aren't at standards, and a lot of that is computation skills. So we're also utilizing what's called Manga High, which is very game-based.
Thank you, Badger Springs. I think that's another example of a school that looked at their data, and they have school-wide systems and supports in place, not only for their teachers, but for their students. And so I think if you were to ask our 6 middle schools, each principal would be able to say, this is our data, and this is our plan, and this is how we're going to improve. Because the expectation with the superintendent goals and expectations is improvement. And, our principals are actually evaluated on those. So it's not only expected, improvement is expected, but they need to say how it's done. So our response to the data, and I'm talking at the district level, I think you've seen the multi-tier systems of supports. So we're meeting the needs through this system with the outcome that is going to impact student achievement, because we want our students to be successful. At the Pre-Leadership Summit, which happened in the summer, we as a team looked at the preliminary data, all the administrators, all the principals, the AP, the AAICs, and we actually did what you're doing now. We went through it, we discussed it, we analyzed it, we argued about it, we talked some more, and we, as a team, we agreed on 2 things that were going to happen across this district. And that helped us as directors of education because we knew what to support the schools in. So these are our 2 focus areas. Now, this doesn't mean that we're not going to do more. But as a district, all the principals, can we agree that these are the expectation district-wide? And if we have that agreement, then how we in educational services, how can all the directors, what can we do to support these 2 areas? So the first one is the academic focus in math. And it applies to ELA, by the way. And we talked about best first instruction using our core materials. We have adopted core materials in math. We have adopted core materials in ELA. The teachers need to use them. They need to be trained on how to use them. They need to be used with fidelity. And they need to make sure that they're always assessing the students to see how they're doing. So can we do that in math? And we said as a district, that's our intention. And so we're going to look at the common formative assessments. So tonight, you are going to hear a lot about professional development and training. Because if we want equity, that means all our teachers get trained. And all our teachers are using the same materials. Now, there are going to be some adaptations for special ed and maybe our EL students, and we have DLI. But can we agree that we have core materials in this district that are board approved? Can we agree that every single teacher in this district will use those? Can we agree that we're going to train you and that we're going to provide support for the teachers if you need support? So know that we really talked about that with the principals. And so we said, let's this is one of our agreements, one of our expectations. And the second one is the MTSS behavior focus with the PBI lessons. And I think you heard from the previous study session all that we're doing in this area. Every single school has a math and ELA plan, and they're going to look different because the needs are different. So when you ask what exactly are they doing in these areas, we monitor that, we update these, and these are the components. We look at lesson planning, we look at what type of interventions are provided, how we're communicating this to the parent. We have in-class coaching. We have a lot of professional development, which you'll get information on tonight. And CAS prep, because we do need to not just wait for the spring and take the test and not prepare you to take it. And some of those tips, I can tell you, is the testing environment wasn't as official as it should be, and that will affect your test. Do the students take the CAS seriously? That will affect your test. So there's so many variables sometimes why we have dips in the year, but the important thing is for the schools to know why, so they know either to fix it or to replicate it if they have good results. We're going to start with early childhood learning. I think you know our district has preschool, Head Start, all the way to adult. So let's start to hear about the achievement of early childhood. And here comes our Director of Elementary, Carol Boyden-Held.
Good evening. I'd also like to introduce our preschool principal, Jennifer Adcock, who's also here this evening. We know that early childhood learning plays a vital role in our students' success, and I wanted to share some data and information with you regarding our program. I think we can be very proud that we've been able to increase access to our families in the community with preschool. Currently, we have 114 full-day Head Start student slots and 136 part-day. Our state preschool has 234 part-day for a total of 484. Our waiting list was at 330, but we have been able to accommodate more students through our extended TK program. So we are now at 278 on the wait list, which is still a lot of students needing preschool. Some of the things that I think are really critical when we think about access is 2 years ago we had 3 AM and PM state preschool classes. We now have 5. We used to only have 2 full-day programs, and our parents kept pleading that we needed more full-day because when they're working, it's really hard to just have a part-day student and then to be able to have someone to pick them up, we've increased that to 6 now. So we're really, really happy that we're able to do that, but we also know that we have more work to do into gaining more access for them. And we're constantly trying to get more slots, but with more slots, we have to have also the facilities. So as I said, I think we, as a district, we've really made some great gains in access over the past couple years. When we look at our preschool data, and yes, we do have data for preschool. Some people say, you really do that? Do you give them tests? Well, not exactly, okay? But we do look at our desired results developmental profile is what we use. And the teachers do this through observation and all kinds of different assessment activities. And you can see this data is from last year, and the light blue is the fall score, and the green is the spring. So you can see the fall, winter, and spring data that shows we are increasing the percentage of students that are either at or above the foundation expectations. And interesting enough, when you look at the data over the last 3 years, it's very similar. And one thing that I want to point out is when you look at language and literacy, you can see that the students coming in are very low. And this is not only in our district, but countywide, we see this same trend. So we're really proud that we're able to really bring that up by the end of the year, and we continue to work on that. This was a first for us in the last couple years that the students in our English language development, and Lilia is probably really happy to hear this, is that 100% of our kids were in at least the middle range or above on the English language development portion on the California Foundation. So that was really, really good. On the parent survey, this is the percentages of parents who are satisfied with the main building blocks of the program, because as we know, it's not just what goes on in the classroom, but all the work that we do with the families in the community. And I know that that's really small to read, so I'll read to that to you. But the first one is at the 88% is how satisfied were the parents on how the program promotes the children's learning and development. The second one was 87%, and that was the interaction between staff and students. The third one is how the program staff communicate with the parents. And the fourth one is the background and experience of staff. So pretty solid in the high 80s, but we even want to increase that even to more. So overall, this kind of gives you a little snapshot of our early learning program and the things that are taking place there. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a couple questions. One is, in order to increase the programs, is that do we have to apply through the, how do we,
Good question. So currently our programs are through a contract with the Riverside County Office of Education. And every year, if there are available slots through their program, meaning they have the funding to provide extra slots, they will let us know. And in the fall of every year, we are always saying, hey, if you have any slots, we want them. They always hear from us, and they always know that we want more slots. And that's how we've been able to increase over the past years.
Okay. Well, two more questions. One is, how do we select the students? Is it first come, first serve that, when we have the slots? And also, just the idea, we know that research shows that students that attend preschool are more academically prepared and do much better in school. So it's really an important thing, to try to, extend those. But how do we get select the kids?
Yeah, so we have, we do a lot of marketing to get out in the community and let people know, where we are and how to get the information. The parents come into our Head Start office, Head Start State Preschool office, and pick up the application forms. They fill out the information. They meet with one of our community liaisons or another clerk, or it could be somebody else, to make sure they have all the information there. There is an eligibility for that. Head Start has stricter eligibilities because they're federal, and then state just this year actually changed the eligibility amounts for families, which really helped a lot of families because it really opened it up for people. But they fill out an application, and so we're just going through them as fast as we can. We probably process what, 700, 800 applications, Jennifer? Yeah, yes. And you could see how many, well, I showed you how many earlier for 484 spots. So we easily process double that in applications alone. So we are just filling them at the classes as soon as we can. And then the second question you had was,
Second was just a statement of the importance, of the preschool, because we have parents that can afford to send their children to preschool, and we have a lot of parents that can't afford it. So, it's just one of those areas. And I know that you work really hard to try to get more, more programs, and also then we have to find space for them. But I thank you for what you do and what we've done so far. But, of course, we'd like to have more.
Always.
All right, the state keeps talking about more preschool. In fact, they've even mentioned preschool for all. As that opens up, will we have the facilities, or do you think the state will come in with some money to help us with facilities to provide more and more preschool?
well, that's what we're kind of waiting to find out. We don't know yet if there's going to be extra facility funds. I know that there has been talk. But it still has not been determined exactly what that's going to look like. Jennifer, have you heard any update on that?
Not specific updates. There's some laws that are on the books right now.
Come on up.
I can't remember the Assembly bill, Senate bill numbers, but there are some laws that are proposed right now having to do specifically with preschool facilities funding and making it a grant funding as opposed to a loan type of funding. And they're in the second year of a 2-year process right now.
Thank you. It looks like you're doing a great job with these kids. I mean, 100% in the English language. I wish we had that across the board a little bit more. Thank you.
Any opportunity we get to apply for grants or anything to expand, we definitely will.
If I could just have a follow-up. We have decreasing enrollment, so why is facilities an issue?
Well, I mean, Susanna, you could answer this, but with preschool programs, you're required to have certain facilities. Yeah. So every classroom that's available is not always the right classroom for a preschool. And we don't really have, our enrollment, while it may be declining, we have a lot of students housed in portables, and therefore those aren't always facilities that are what you call appropriate for preschool programs where they're located.
Yeah, we have to follow a lot of licensing requirements for the preschool programs that are not, not requirements that we have for other classrooms. There's all these regulations regarding bathrooms, how much space you need for playground, how much, there's a lot of regulations that follow in the licensing that, it is harder to have the classrooms.
Okay, and follow up regarding Measure M, do we not have a plan for expansion of preschool within our Measure M?
Preschool is not included in Measure M. That was not part of what we did. And preschool isn't funded through our ADA for our school district. So that's a different program and a different apportionment. It's like adult education. Those programs are funded separately and not part of the TK through 12 program.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Is there any opportunity to bring preschool in-house? I like you mentioned Head Start and our county run, et cetera, and we're trying to expand utilizing those opportunities. But is there any?
So we are looking at the possibility of applying directly to the state for state preschool. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at.
I have a meeting Friday. There should be some slots released soon.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Great job.
So I'm going to go ahead and continue with looking at our elementary math. And one of the things that you've heard people talk about is the MTSS. And we really wanted to focus on our Tier 1, our best first instruction. And so some of the things that we were doing, we offered Go Math Plus training for teachers. and we had four cohorts that met 6 times during the year for a total of 522 teachers being trained. So as Mrs. Maddox mentioned earlier, you know, part of getting better at what we do and increasing student achievement, that's really making sure our teachers have the resources, the skills, and the tools to implement. We also have our administrators monitoring fidelity with the program, making sure our math manipulatives are being utilized, that they're seeing the math talks happening in the classrooms, that the mathematical practices are being taught. And we're also continuing with our family math nights, bringing in the families and engaging them in activities with their children.
Do you get a pretty good turnout for those family math nights?
We have had very good turnouts.
Good.
So as we're moving forward, we're also working on scope and sequence for math and our common formative assessment. So this development is underway. And we also have an increased usage of our interim assessment blocks for formative assessment. So as we work through and plan with our scope and sequence and more common formative assessments, we still will be continuing using our IABs for the formative assessments. In English language...
I have a question. Are the scope and sequence being developed by teachers?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We always work with PD specialists.
And with the teachers?
So at your place right now, you do have in your folder, you have this document on the right, I think it's on the right-hand pocket. And it's called, this is the English Language Arts Scope and Sequence. It's got a white background on it with the district logo in the middle. Okay. But it's really intended to be a digital document because it has hyperlinks on it. And that was developed for and by teachers. So we're developing the math one as we speak. That's underway. But English Language Arts was the first priority.
Now, are all schools, when you said 4 cohorts, is that every school's doing this, or what's, you know?
Yeah, last year we did, the year before we had kind of our more, I would say, needier schools, the schools that were lowest performing. So they were the top priority for what we were calling Go Math Plus, and then eventually Wonders Plus. And so we started to we developed a Moreno Valley-ized version of the textbook training so that it was more meaningful to our teachers versus publishers who are coming in with a generic training. We wanted something more Moreno Valley-ized, and it was much more intense. All of the professional development specialists and IACs came to that training and learned side by side or worked side by side with their teachers and then coached them up back at the sites after the training. And that's where you're really seeing some significant gains as a result of some of that direct coaching.
Yeah. Yes,
One more question. Is there like a mini session for administrators, the principals, so they know what to, when they're doing walkthroughs, what to
Yes,
look
we do.
for?
And we also invite them to attend with teachers.
They all attended those
Yes.
trainings.
Wonderful.
Yes. One way or
Yeah.
another. And the assistant principals as well.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So the ELA scope and sequence was developed, TK5. It's also aligned with our Step Up to Writing strategies. The teachers have been trained in that, and we wanted to make sure they could see the alignment and help with the ease of planning. The PD specialist also developed some customized STEAM lessons that are aligned to this also. And as you can see here, we had 52 teachers that helped develop the scope and sequence, and that did include professional development specialists who were facilitating some of those sessions by grade levels. Yeah, if you go to the next slide. So at your, you should also have a copy of this. This is a sample page from our scope and sequence. And you can see that we basically aligned it with the Wonders, and then they worked on some other additional pieces that we felt were critical. In this upper gray box, you'll see some of the things in these dark purple. Well, those are standards that are throughout the entire unit. But you'll also see some other things down here where you'll see some standards in the purple and some other things like that. Those are specific to the work that they were doing, because some of the items that are tested are in the very last unit and say unit 6, and they wanted to take a look at that and analyze and say, do we need to pull those forward? Are they being taught any other time? So they very strategically put those standards in so that the teachers could make sure that these were being taught even before testing, but in a logical place where it made sense, as if they were already doing something at that time. And so they also added on this research inquiry column, which was really important because we really didn't have that in a scope and sequence. It was harder for the teachers to really plan and align that piece.
So maybe if we kind of pull up 10,000 feet and look at this, this is the scope and sequence paper or plan that's laid out by the publisher, Wonders. And so we really always feel that we need to Moreno Valleyize it because it needs to be really thought through for teachers by teachers so that they really dig deep into it and understand it. So as they really worked through all grade levels, TK through 5, they really looked at every single week. So what you have in front of you is just a sample of 1 week. So we have all of the units laid out this way where you see they've made the changes, but we were able to type on their scope and sequence and make this digital. So as we go through the year and we evaluate how well this works, we can change it because we can type right on it.
So you can see this was from November 4th to March 6th. It just gives them an idea of the material that they should probably be covering during that time span in order to ensure that students are taught all the standards. And so that's all laid out for every grade level, every unit for our language arts program. So we also, with the focus on the Tier 1 First Best Instruction, had 702 teachers trained in our Wonders Plus training. So that was like a second level training that we, as Dr. Busters mentioned, we kind of Moreno Valleyize it.
And that was new. In recent years, we haven't had all our teachers go to training. We didn't have as much funding to support them. And so we were able to actually make this particular training required. Yeah. And for Go Math as well. And so we're really proud to say we got all our teachers through.
Yeah.
So how many teachers, elementary teachers, do we have?
Around 700.
Yeah, probably around that. It might be a few more, but I think that's
so
close to it.
So we pretty much trained everybody. That's
yeah,
good.
Everybody was asked to attend the trainings. Yes.
There's 1,800 teachers, so 700 are elementary.
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Middle school and high school.
And that 1,800 includes all the preschool, all the nurses, the psychologists.
Yeah.
So
certificated employees.
Nautica, you got your sign-in sheets. Would you say all your teachers were trained? So the principals monitored that. So last year, 702 is pretty much everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to get everybody in.
Us too.
What's the follow-up on that training?
All of the professional development specialists go back into the classrooms and funny you should ask. Well, I'll get to that in a minute, but we'll talk about the various models we use for coaching in class. And so the follow-up is ongoing every day, Monday through Thursday. Their coaches are on site. Is that what answering your question?
What about Friday?
Friday, they are down getting training and having a staff meeting. Okay, so our newest project is our P3 reading initiative.
So we know that our goal is to have all students reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. So we wanted to look intently at what was happening within our reading programs and what our data was telling us. So we wanted to make sure that whatever we did, that it was going to be data-driven, that it would target instruction, it would involve leveled small groups, guided reading, that we would be able to provide the training necessary and the coaching support. So as we embarked on this initiative, we felt that these were key things that had to be in place for us to be successful. And as you know, we had our launch just a few weeks ago, but we have 8 schools within the first cohort. In August, the leveled book rooms were ordered for all the school sites. They were delivered in September, and the PD specialists were actually in training in the month of October, getting the skills, developing plans for us to train our teachers. And in November, this month, we are going to begin our teacher training for balanced literacy with a major focus on guided reading trainings. And our hope will be then that in January, the teachers will begin the guided reading groups with the support of the PD specialists. Now, this doesn't mean we haven't been doing guided reading groups, but what we found is there was a lack of understanding of what takes place in guided reading and what the key components were. So that's what we're trying to help everybody understand, in addition to the leveled book rooms. Because when we purchase an adoption, you may get 5 books of one level. Well, as you know, 5 books is not enough. And that was one of the major things that our teachers kept telling us: we don't have enough leveled readers to do what we need to do.
And some of those readers were not able to go low enough.
Yeah.
Some of our students are not performing, obviously, at grade level, so we need to use these what we call little books, the levels A through Q that are kind of like baby steps to accelerate their reading level so that we can get them up to grade level by 3rd grade.
I think that leveled reading is really a good thing. I think it gives students who are a little below grade level a chance to read something and feel successful at reading that. It also gives those students who are above grade level a chance to read something a little bit more difficult. So I think it's really a good plan. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, we're going to now move on to the dual immersion program. On this picture, you're going to see teachers, dual immersion teachers, but more importantly, you're seeing the faces of our global citizens, those students that we are helping to become global citizens in the future. This group of students happens to be the Armada students who promoted from 5th grade to 6th grade just this year. So we're very proud of the work that is coming out of the dual immersion program. In this district, we have a Spanish-English dual immersion program that we started 7 years ago. The data is showing what it's supposed to be showing, and that is that our students in the dual immersion program are making progress, and they're making good progress. In fact, today I'm going to highlight one of those grade levels for you. These are the participating schools, teachers, and students. We are presently at 6 elementary schools, 3 middle schools. The elementary schools, there are 2 that are at K5, 1 Sunnymead Middle School that's at K4, so Armada and Butterfield are the K5 schools. Those are the 2 that we started with. Creekside is currently at K1. And the 2 brand new dual immersion schools are Cloverdale and Honey Hollow. I remember calling Dr. Katsura one day and asking him, Dr. Katsura, what are we going to do with the over 50 students that are kinder students that are on the waiting list? And he said, well, we're going to provide services for them. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to find a school, and we're going to put those students in dual immersion classrooms. So we contacted a number of principals. They were all thrilled. In fact, there isn't a principal. I don't think there is a single principal that does not want the dual immersion school at their school sites. They know what that potential means for the school site overall. So these 2 principals happen to have the space and just the desire, and they had been tapping my shoulder for a number of years, that when the opportunity arose, they wanted to be dual immersion principals. So again, we're currently with 1 classroom at Cloverdale and 1 classroom at Honey Hollow. Our 5th grade students promoted to 6th grade. We have 3 schools, Badger Springs, Mountain View, and Sunnymead Middle Schools are the 3 schools that absorbed those students from the elementary schools, from the 2 elementary schools, Armada and Butterfield. Presently, we are serving 1,090 elementary students and 82 students who are in 6th grade. Now, If we started 4 classrooms at 25 each, that should be about 100 students. But with attrition, students moving out of the district, and then a number of students also wanting to go to the IB school, Vista Heights, we lost a few students from the dual immersion program, but we recouped them at another one of our schools. And again, those handful of students that have left the program, they've actually left the district as well. And we also now have grown to 52 teachers. So it is it is becoming a challenge year after year to identify and hire high quality dual immersion teachers. And one of the main reasons is because there are so many other districts that are also implementing the dual immersion program. So we are competing with a lot of those districts, neighboring districts. The good news for our district is that we are a participant in the Bilingual Teacher Professional Development Grant. We are in the final year of that grant. Last year, we had 4 of our teachers go through that program and acquire their bilingual credential, and that's a requirement in order to be a dual immersion teacher. And this year, we have 5 teachers in the cohort that are participating, and the grant is paying for their entire educational experience. So they're very excited. Some of those teachers are presently, I think 2 of the 5 teachers are presently in the dual immersion classroom on an emergency credential, and we can do that for 1 year. So we're very excited about that. By the end of the school year, all 5 of those teachers will have earned their bilingual authorization. I'm very proud of this slide because I don't think that you have seen these kinds of numbers on the data sheets that you were shown earlier. This is Ramona Elementary in 4th grade, so I'm highlighting 4th grade for these 2 schools. In English language arts, the dual immersion classrooms, the dual immersion students were at 64.5% at meeting or exceeding on the CASP English language arts test, and at 50% in math. Butterfield last year Armada did a little bit better. This year Butterfield did a little bit better in dual immersion. Butterfield's dual immersion students are at 68.5 meet or exceeds in English language arts, and at 66.5 meet or exceeds in mathematics. So if you recall from the earlier slides, these numbers are in some cases doubling or maybe even a little higher than the site, certainly the site averages, but even at the district level. This data set is also huge for our district because as a district, we're at 16.3% reclassification. Now, Dr. Kadzira asked earlier to clarify, to get some clarification on the LPAC. And what the state did is they redid the formula for the LPAC because they felt that the first year, too many students scored at the highest level of proficiency. You would think that the state would be happy with that. Well, no. How about let's make the test harder so that fewer students can reclassify? And that's essentially what happened across the district, across the county, across the state. And so it is what it is. This year, there is going to be an added level of complexity on the LPAC. They have doubled the number of exam items that are some of the hardest, and that is to do a summary on an academic presentation. And that is a very, very difficult task type for our students. And so the state is expecting even a smaller number of students who are getting the highest level of proficiency on the LPAC, which is level 4. So we'll see how that plays out. And then on top of that, if that's not enough, this year they're having to do it on a computer. So that's even another level of complexity that we're posing our students. But everyone say, these kids are digital natives. So we're hoping for the best on that side, but just the level of rigor of the exam is a little higher. But take a look at those students who have been English learners, who started as English learners in the dual immersion program. Look at their levels of reclassification. At Armada, we're at over 60%. And at Butterfield, we're at 60%. I mean, that is incredible compared to, again, our district reclassification rate, which at the rate that the state is going with making the test harder for students to qualify. Now, if the student does not get a 4 on the LPAC, it doesn't matter if they have straight A's. It doesn't matter how well they do on other measures. They're not going to reclassify. So we'll see. This is the first year where the LPAC will be will have that additional task type, and also the first year that we administer it via their Chromebooks. One of the messages that we will be sending principals is, again, that they need to take this test as seriously, if not more so, Glenn, as the CASP assessment, because it truly does impact students at many levels.
So question.
Yes, sir.
These are wonderful numbers, right? But on the surface of it, it's just a number. We really need to get at the heart of why these students are doing so well. And because when you look at Armada and Butterfield, standards that are not met or nearly met are over 60%. But we're showing students that are in ELA, and right, it's the total opposite.
Correct.
So what is it about these students? Or maybe it's the students, maybe there's selection there, or maybe it's the program. So do you have any insight on that exactly?
Yes, sir.
Why we're getting those results?
Yes, sir. There are over 40 years of research, of studies that demonstrate that dual immersion is the ideal placement for students such as, for example, English learners. Because this is a value-added program, not a subtractive program, where students are using their foundational language, knowledge of their primary language, and they're adding to it. Versus students who are sitting in an English-only classroom where they are not using what they already know from their primary language. They're not transferring that, and that's one of the components of dual immersion, that it helps students to transfer what they know in one language to the other. So the more they learn in their primary language, the more they're able to learn in that second language, and there's a lot of transfer, and specifically in languages such as English and Spanish, where there are a lot of cognates. And so teachers are trained also monthly. That's another component where we meet with teachers, my coordinator, myself, the program specialist. We, through this grant that I mentioned earlier, we've been able to contract consultants through CABE, and last year we had them come out twice. This year we've already contracted with them. In fact, November 14th is our first of the 2 days where they will come out, and I surveyed the teachers, and I asked them, what area, what do you need training on? Just like we asked principals this morning on, what other training do you need for bullying? We asked our teachers, what other training do you need to be more effective in the classroom in the dual immersion setting? And they all agreed that they needed training on grammar in the context of the Spanish classroom, so yes. that 50% in 4th and 5th grade, what does that look like? What is the grade? So the finer complexities of language grammar. And so that's what they're going to get trained on November 14th. On February 3rd, they're going to be training on part 2 of language transference. How does what they're learning in one language transfer to the other language? So again, it's training students on how to transfer and how to utilize and really get a handle of one language, so that they can then fortify and get better at that second language that they're learning. And it goes both ways, English to Spanish and Spanish to English. So the fact that they, again, are using those 2 languages is really what's at the crux and what the research has demonstrated. And with the passage of Prop 58, many and many more districts are joining this this journey of getting our students to become more of those global citizens and really get a handle of more than one language. I shared with Dr. Kidziera some data earlier. I don't know if you're okay if I share it with them. You are? Okay. This morning I learned I had been out on illness. I was out on illness yesterday. I think it was Monday. Yeah. But when I got here this morning, I learned that we have 124 students who will be recognized on November 21st for having earned the Seal of Multiliteracy, the County Seal of Multiliteracy. Last year we had 81, and for the past number of years, ever since the start of the County Seal of Multiliteracy, our district has been the #1 district in terms of number of students who have earned that seal. This year we grew by over 40. Is that the right math? Like 43 students from prior year. And so I've already asked the county if we're still the #1 district, and I'm pretty sure that the answer is going to be, well, absolutely, you're still the #1 district. But what's going to happen is all these students are going to go to the county, and they're going to just kind of smell the test and get a passing score on it, because they're already going to be fully bilingual by the time by the time they are old enough or are in 12th grade to take those assessments and demonstrate that they're bilingual. And then, as a reminder, any student who earns the county seal of biliteracy automatically earns the state seal of biliteracy. So the county will be sending us those seals. And so you know that the state seal of biliteracy is one of the indicators on the dashboard, right? So we're very excited about that. We're just creating more bilingual students that are going to be earning those accolades later on, and we're very, very proud of it. Again, it's a value-added program. It's not a subtractive program, and that's one of the biggest reasons why it's so powerful and so effective.
I think another attribute why they do so well, Lilia, and this is to add to Mr. Peden's question, is that these are optional programs that parents choose to opt into.
Correct.
And so therefore, when you have your meetings with them, they learn a great deal about their child's education. They become more involved, and they become more aware of how their children are learning and what they're learning. It's very different than the other programs where parents just, accept whatever happens and don't ask a lot of questions. Like when you have these meetings, they're much more involved. If you look at Ramona Elementary School in Butterfield, they have 2 of the highest engagement among their PTA groups. They're huge. And most of those are the dual language immersion parents. We have a challenge at those schools because there's parents and teachers that sometimes don't often see the benefit, Mr. Peden, of this right here. So Lilia Villa and Ms. Neal, they work with their staff and their community to bridge these communities to work together. But it's not often seen as a highlight like you may be seeing it in certain schools. And we have to work with families and parents on that. But the other thing that has transformed our district is the parents wanting their children to be in certain programs. We noticed that with the middle school program this year. They were much more interested in where their child was going to school and where they were going to learn and what they were going to do, as opposed to other parents that may not have the same interest. But like when they learned about the International Baccalaureate program, more of them opted to go there. So they're much more engaged in the process, and that has a huge influence on the progress in this.
I agree with your perspective 100%, Dr. Kadzira. These parents are much more demanding, and I mean that in the most respectful way. And it's great. It's great that these parents are asking questions and that they're being more demanding, because that really also forces us as a system to really provide the very best educational opportunity to these students as possible. We're very, very proud of the program, and we're hoping that it continues to grow. We know that every year there is greater and greater parental interest. And just a final note before I hand over the mic, we have special education students in this program because there are many special education parents of students with special needs that feel that their children should also have an opportunity to become bilingual, and many of them are being successful. So with that, thank you. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to jump in real quick and based on what Dr. Kadzira said. So I don't know the research in terms of parent engagement and how it's correlated with academic outcomes. I guess there's a consensus in this group that there is a correlation.
There's definitely a correlation.
Okay. And on this presentation, are we going to dive into parent engagement and how well we're doing since it's so highly correlated?
Not really, because there's 104 slides and you're at 91.
Well, I didn't know if it was somewhere in the 130s. That's why I asked.
But that's why we started the Parent Ambassador program in our district that is highly touted in our LCAP, because we know that engaging parents in the learning and the process is extremely valuable.
I would like to add as well. I remember when I first started, one of the things that I did is that I went to every school more than one time, and I had the principal, and the principal sitting back there right now from Badger. He knows that the work that was put in at his school, And of course, I'll say more about that at the end. But it really works, and it helps you, helped me as a board member to go to those schools more than once so I could learn everything I could about each one of them. And principals didn't mind, and then we even worked with the principal for a while until we all were satisfied to the direction that we were heading into. I don't want to say too much because you know what I mean. Yeah, but it really works. It works when we show them how much we're interested and how much we care.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Esperanza Arce. I'm the Director of Secondary Education. And in this next part of the presentation, I have to say there's a lot of great programs happening at the secondary level. Also, my counterpart, who is out on medical leave, she's not here. She's the Director of College and Career. So I'm hoping to grasp a little bit of also the great things that are happening with College and Career. And because of time, any time, if you want to dive deeper into one of the programs that we have at the secondary level, you've heard a lot of data. You saw a lot of data. So this is just more culminating into what are we doing consistently throughout our secondary schools. So first, in terms of ELA, I'm very proud to say that one of the first tasks that happened when I started a year and a half, Dr. Buster and I worked together with the PD specialist to create a scope and sequence with our new ELA adopted materials, Study Sync at the middle school and Springboard at the high schools. So working together, creating modules so that teachers could dive deep into these modules, and we really focused on 3 main areas, which included PLCs, 21st century skills, and MTSS. So the scope and sequence was adapted to that. We realized that curriculum alone is just curriculum. It's just a script the teachers can follow. But it's the beauty and the creativity of the teacher coupled with the curriculum that really makes the magic happen. And we can't do that without, as we heard earlier from Hattie's research, teacher effective efficacy is to really work effectively with the PLCs. So at the secondary level, really defining what those PLCs are. How do we come together? How do we analyze the data? Going not only into the PLC cycle, which is the heart of a PLC process, is analyzing the deficiencies that we have in terms of our standards and our skills. So as we look at the targets that our students are assessed in and looking at the deficient targets and which of those targets are assessed at a higher rate and what DOK levels we need and all that, teachers have to analyze all that prior to engaging into the PLC cycle. So the PLC cycle answers 4 basic questions. What do we want students to know? How do we know students are going to meet the expectations? And then what are we going to do for the kids that don't get it? And what are we going to do for the kids that get it? And most of the time that response, those questions 3 and 4, is what we have difficulty with. So it's really nice to see that, especially with our ELA teachers, and you see it in our scores, they've taken this to heart. They come together by grade level, by subject area, and they really make a commitment to PLC. 21st century skills, I mean, the 4 C's. It's not just to say, this is the content, these are the standards. I mean, that's great. But really, it's about those 4 C's: creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. How are we engaging with the curriculum? That's a very, very powerful. But more importantly, it's how are the kids doing? It's not just a matter of kids, okay, talk to each other, talk in a group, collaborate. It's how effectively are they communicating? And that's where I'm excited in the new phase with P21, in terms of our schools being P21, but at Leader 21 in the partnership that you approved, thank you so much, and really looking at those rubrics so that our teachers can consistently throughout our district assess, what does critical thinking look like? And it's not, I think it looks like this. No, what does it look like based on rubrics vetted by teachers for teachers? And so, and then you've heard MTSS, multi-tier systems and supports. What are we doing when our kids are not getting it? The core first instruction, they're not just being successful. What are we doing for tier 2? what are we doing for tier 3? And then not only just, okay, what are we doing so that they can be successful in tier 2, but what are we doing so that we can re-engage them back to tier 1? Also, we're excited that in our subject advisory councils, I don't know if you're aware, we meet with them 3 times a year on subjects, and we had a big kickoff at the beginning of the year. We did this new thing, and it was really exciting. We are English language arts teachers approved to engage in ERWC, which is we use it as the 12th grade curriculum for the most part. Board policy says that students have to do English 1, 2, and 3, and then they either can go into AP Lit or they can go into, and they can take it earlier, AP Lang. And one of them is ERWC, which is if they take this course, it's articulated into a college course, which is pretty cool. This is the new curriculum, so our teachers at the high school level approve that, and they're engaging in that. Also, our ALD descriptors, that is something that's part of the scope and sequence that we focused on to see, okay, not only do you have to learn this curriculum, but how are you engaging with the Common Core ALD descriptors consistently, which is something that we would love to see more of the articulation from elementary to secondary, but Carol and I and Dr. Buster, we have a great relationship, and that's something that we've talked about, getting teachers together from 5th grade to 6th grade, and then teachers together from 8th grade to 9th grade, because we understand that backward mapping is so critical. What do you want the kids to know? It's like, well, we would like this, this, and this. That vertical articulation is just as powerful as horizontal articulation. And you heard from Badger Springs, we have Cali Reads. We have 3 schools that are Cali Reads, which is literacy across the curriculum. We're super excited. We do Cali Week walks. We have workshops. We're doing on March 14th, we're gonna have awareness of literacy in our families. So you're invited to go there. It's gonna be at Mountain View. That's second semester. But we're bringing, one of the commitments to be a Cali Read school is you have to have family engagement and really promote literacy. So we're gonna bring the families together of 50 of our students and their parents, because a lot of times we do great things for families, and then we do great things for kids, but sometimes we don't bring them together. We wanna see how kids and families interact together, and do they know the goals of their children? And do the children know how much the parents care? Sometimes we don't see that. So this is gonna be an amazing opportunity. We're hoping to have about 300 students and then their parent or parents. It could be pretty big, but this is the first time we're doing that, and that's gonna be through the Cali Reads. And then we have our CSI plans. So one of the things that I oversee as Director of Secondary Education, I support the middle and high schools, but two of the 3 middle school CSI schools are assigned to me, so I support them. We meet at a very regular basis. I oversee their CSI plans, and that's why earlier, Mr. Peden, when you asked Badger Springs, like, are all schools doing the same thing? Sometimes it depends on the needs. That's about the equity, right? Equity is what the schools need, and so in this particular case, the CSI plans is very tailored into what the schools needs. So if you ever want to do a walkthrough, I went to Badger Springs. That was my first visit. Then I'm going to go to Sunny Mead Middle School. That's next week. And then I'll be at Mountain View. And Badger Springs, I shared this. It was just, I felt like I was in a different world. It was beautiful. The kids were, in this particular visit, they were looking at their PBLs, problem-based learning, and they were looking at the theme for this semester for problem-based learning is change. And they talked about how they would change if they would solve a world problem. What would that be? And this particular group of students decided that they wanted to look at, if our resources on Earth would extinguish, what other options do we have? And they said they would want to go and see if they could live in Mars. Now that they found ice in Mars, I didn't know that. And they were sharing this, and they're like, oh yeah, so we're in 9 different groups. So there's 36 students, 9 different groups. So each group has 4 kids. And in my group, we're looking at the filtration system that we would use. And over here, they're looking at the aqueducts. And the aqueducts must match the filtration system. So I'm like looking at them and like, how are you gonna measure aqueducts? And how, well, we have to be proportioned because the water has to slide a certain way. And then they're talking about the filtration system. And I'm like, what did you choose to filtrate the water? And they said, well, we decided to go with carbon because that has the high volume. And they're explaining this. And I'm like, I'm so proud of them, and they're going to have their big culminating PBL revelation and reveal. So, and which kind of goes back into here. We're at the secondary level at all 6 middle schools and 2 high schools. We're engaging in problem-based learning. We're looking at IABs that consistently throughout all 6 middle schools are doing this. Engaging on purposeful CFAs, not just to say we have a common assessment. We have a common formative assessment that really is informing our instruction. It's in real time. We want to change our instruction and adapt it to how students, the needs of the students. And then one last thing that we're just so proud of, and maybe not so proud of the outcome of the data yet, because that's our baseline. We engage all of our 6 middle schools in something called the middle school transcript analysis. And this analysis allowed us to get the class of 2019, and I say 19 because really they're not class of 2019, they're promoting. So looking at all 3 years worth of transcript data and seeing what are the percentage of students that never got a D or an F in Badger Springs, Landmark, Palm, Sunnymead, Vista Heights, Mountain View, what percentage of that? So we've looked at every single middle school, and we've compiled a report. The county partnered with us. I don't know if you know this, but I also help chair something called Magnify the Middle, which is a county initiative, and we're at the forefront of that. So we'll reveal that data at another time, but that's what we're doing for the most part in ELA in secondary. In math,
How come you don't want to tell them now since you said all that?
because it has to be reliable and valid. I mean, I can give them what the preliminary numbers are.
Yeah, why not? Because, they're probably all sitting there like, why is Dr. Kidsdorf telling her not to say it?
Okay, it's base. So we looked at we did the transcript analysis, and then we matched it with Glenn's transcript analysis, and they were pretty close. We're at 22% right now, district-wide. Some schools are a little lower than that, and other schools, so we range from 13% all the way to 26% of schools that students never got a D or an F in middle school for all 3 years. And these are our kids, not kids that came in the middle of the year, not kids that came in 7th grade. We're talking 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. Question?
So does that mean 78% did get a D or an F sometime?
Right now, that's what we're speculating. We're looking deeper into the data, but that's what we're looking at. When we are looking at something called pseudo credits. As you may or may not know, in middle school, it's very difficult sometimes, the engagement. We talk about in middle school, you have the kids for 5 to 6 years. In high school, you have students for 4 years, and you have the carrot of graduation, A through G, college, all these amazing events happening at the end of their senior year, and you better do this or you can't participate. Middle school is our most vulnerable years. We have them only for 3 years. 6th grade, they're transitioning in. 8th grade, they're transitioning out. So technically, we have them for a year, and we have no carrot for them. Grades, do they matter? We can argue, sure, they matter, but really, do they really matter? Because they're going to promote anyways. We're not going to have a 17-year-old in 8th grade, and we don't have credits. So we're looking at this idea of pseudo credits, and so we did an analysis of kids that came in with pseudo credits in 9th grade, and it was pretty comparable to this data as well. So we know that that's our most vulnerable age group, and we're putting a lot of efforts and resources into that.
Are you going to look at where the bulk of those are? I mean, in terms of like by grade?
Absolutely. We're looking at when the dive is, and we can tell you already it's in 8th grade. We already saw the trend.
What's in 8th grade?
When they dive into getting more D's and F's. So, and we're looking by gender, we're looking by our ethnic groups, we're looking by student groups. That part of the report is very comprehensive and very detailed, which I'm more than happy to submit it once it's completed. Right now, it's just at the beginning.
We did the same thing when we improved the graduation rate.
Right.
It was the very same process.
Yes.
We did this. We knew exactly where and what to do. We'll do the same thing in this.
Yes. That's why we're very excited, because it's like an assessment of us, like we're looking at, it's an opportunity. It's just an amazing opportunity for middle schools, because a lot of times these are the questions that we're asking, and parent engagement will be a part of that. Teacher engagement, student engagement, it's all stakeholders. Okay, so for math, one of the things that we realize as a district is we realize that our math scores could be better, but that's something that's happening at the state level. And so in math, we, as you saw earlier, one of the commitments is looking at best first instruction and assessing that best first instruction with effective CFAs. So what we're looking for is, we already did this, which is super exciting to see over 45 teachers, secondary math teachers attend on October 21st. We partnered with our assessment and accountability, our technology innovation and assessment department, and we came together with an overview of the expectations, teaching teachers about, and a lot of them are experts, they already know, but engaging in how you create an effective CFA, giving them options to do that. In October and November, they were given a window, so they're gonna administer this CFA. And again, a lot of them are doing it on a weekly basis. Others, they're doing it several times, but that's part of why we're doing this. We wanna see not only the data that is obvious to us, but the data that we don't see, the data that we don't know. It's gonna give us information indirectly and directly. So they're gonna administer this, and then we're gonna come back together on December 3rd, and we're gonna look at that CFA in response, that common formative assessment. We're gonna discuss results, and we're gonna talk about what did they do with the data. So they gave the CFA, so what did they do? And some of them might say, we didn't do anything, we just gave the CFA, and there's the data. Others will come back and say, this is what we did. We hired a sub, and the teacher gave intervention. We want to see the level of creativity so they can help us inform us of what systems we have to tweak a little bit more. But that's something that we're very excited and we're committed to our district expectation at the beginning of the year. And again, looking at with Cali Reads, we're looking at math literacy in math. That's something new for a lot of our students. They don't think of reading in math. And again, the CSI plans and PBLs. So this is something that it's in this is the year of looking and diving deeper, but we feel like this is gonna be so critical moving forward in our secondary schools for math. And with that, I'm just gonna really quickly go into college and career, which is amazing because it's our mission statement that every student is gonna hopefully go into higher education or a viable career path upon graduation. So I wanna share a little bit of data here on things that we've done, and those of you that know things that, hopefully all of you have been aware of to some level of the things that we're doing in terms of college and career and getting our kids super excited that high school is not the end, right? So looking at our dashboard data, we know that we have areas of improvement, but right now, based on college and career indicators, 30.1% of our students are prepared, considering the CCI indicators. Of those prepared, we know that 30.1% are coming from AP exams, 51.7 smarter balance, and 73.6 are being prepared through A through G plus something. So we know that students that are prepared, they're getting the information through A through G. And that's something that we want to continue to push forward, especially because all of our courses are A through G for the most part, and we want to continue to give students the opportunity to make up those A through G courses when possible.
So what percentage of our students are completing all the A through G courses in the course of their high school career? Is that the 73%? Or?
No, so this 73.6% is only of the students that met prepared are that. You will see that data in just a second.
Okay.
Okay, and then college going rate. These are the students that set foot on a college campus, 2-year or 4-year, the first year upon graduating high school. So right now as a district, we're at 51.4%, but I wanna show you the data from 2015, and then our most current, which is 2018, it's an increase of 4.6%. And I really wanna give the opportunity, a shout out to Canyon Springs High School, because Canyon Springs High School, we just reviewed their most latest data, and they are at 67% college going rate. They're the highest of our comprehensive schools. And then looking at the UCCSU requirements, as a district, we are right now at 33.3% in our latest data. Those are the students that have met the A through G collectively as a whole. And 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, based on the 2018, because we haven't gotten the latest one for 2019, we were at 32.8, and current is 33.3. And even though that's a 0.5% gain, it's kind of like some schools are a little bit higher than others, but there are efforts from the College and Career Office through CCGI, which is it's the tool, the platform that we use so that kids can actually apply for college, and really creating these activities and milestones from secondary to high school. We believe, and we have seen the trend, that this is going to impact and skyrocket, especially when the new data is released. So we're excited about that.
Are UC and CSU requirements the same?
Through the CMP, yes. So they have A through G requirements. There are some variations. CSU might require another year or preferred year of math, which would give you more points in a sliding scale, and not the CSUs. So their sliding scales with SAT in comparison to A through G is a little bit different, but not too much. But overall, their CSUs accept whatever the UCs, which is the CMP, which is the portal, the management portal that we use to submit our A through G courses.
But if you meet the requirements for CSU, you don't necessarily meet the requirements for UC, correct?
That is correct.
Do you have those? The opposite is true. Yeah, I understand that. Are the those? Do you have those broken down to the two difference in terms of?
We do not.
Okay,
we do not. Okay, and that is it. Thank you so much for being here.
Add Esperanza,
Yes.
you pointed this out about Canyon Springs.
Yes.
They have the highest college going rate.
That is correct.
But the high school with the highest graduation rate is Valley View High School.
Yes.
So I do want to point out to the board that the counselors at each of these schools, sometimes they take on different missions as far as what they do. And so that sometimes can influence some of those factors there, which is something we're working on.
Yes, and absolutely. And I mean, we're super proud of our graduation rate, and Valley View's graduation rate is something that when you compare a school like Valley View to others that have the similar programs, and we're including special education programs within a comprehensive school like that, there is probably no other school that can meet that graduation rate. So yes, it's about not only the passion and the heart, but being very surgical with the data. And every school has their strengths. Of course, we want to take the strength of one and put it on the other, because that's the only way we're all going to get better. So yes, I pointed out Canyon because of the data, but absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. And I leave you with Dr. Bester.
Thank you. So we're going to go back to those agreed upon supports and actions, I guess we can refer to them as, that we decided on at the Leadership Summit. And we're going to talk about the Flex Days. Our Flex Days will be focusing on MTSS. And so you have at your place or in your folder this handout, and it lays out the 6 flex days that Ed Services supports. Dr. Kidzura likes to say they're not actually 6 flex days, they're 6 flex hours. And but at some sites, they are a little bit longer based on their restructuring. So these are the themes that we are going to be focusing on this year, so that we have, we are a unified school district and we have a unified approach. So in September, we connected the MTSS pyramids to state indicators so that we could start to bring that out in front. All of our teachers on our Flex Days experience the same presentation. We train the principals, the assistant principals, the AAIACs, and the professional development specialists. They work collaboratively. We train them early in the month. They work collaboratively to develop a training for their staff, and then all teachers receive the training. So then in October, we looked at state indicators and looked at how could we measure interventions. So we looked very carefully and closely at what is happening at each school site and what are some of the things we can learn from each other. So that was pretty heavy duty. So we're going to go ahead this month and revisit that same theme, but we're going to delve even deeper. So today we reviewed that approach, and we are going to dig in deeper and upload everyone's 1 or 2 plans or actions that they're taking up on a common Google Doc where they can share and look at each other's ideas. The crux or the focus of each of these actions is developing some sort of a measurable goal. So we're really looking at not just what are you doing, but how are you measuring it? How do you know it's working? Then in January, we have historically had a time where we have inspirational speakers. This year we will be having Alex Cagitani. He was the 2009 Teacher of the Year here in California, and he was a finalist at the state level, and he's bringing a group with him, and they're going to be providing professional development in a variety of areas. Then in February...
Month is he coming?
He'll be here January, and it's the last day of the month, or the last Wednesday of the month, that is, the 27th, thank you. And it's on this sheet here, the actual date. Then in February, we'll connect the MTSS pyramids and add some even more supports and services and start to really fill out their pyramids. Then in April, as we have historically done, we have our CASP testing training. So now we'll transition over to professional development and talk about how we're going to help get these all of these grand plans that you've heard both from secondary ed, elementary ed, assessment and accountability. So if you look at the yellow handout, you'll see a model or a menu actually of services and supports that are provided by professional development specialists. So this really helps us dig deep into how do our coaches support teachers. And there are a variety of ways that they do that. One of the things that we really try to strive for is the first one, the bottom column on the left-hand side, a classroom visit with feedback. That has been, that to me is the ultimate that we're hoping for, but it is also a place where the PD specialist and the teachers really have to have the highest levels of trust, because you're allowing or kind of putting yourself out there as a teacher to have another adult come into your room and give you feedback as to what you're doing. So we really strive for that and try to get up to those higher levels. It's easier to come in and do a demo lesson or maybe a co-plan, co-teach, because it's more of the PD specialist putting themselves out there, or maybe doing a STEAM learning lab, or helping facilitate a grade level articulation or a PLC. Even doing data chats and a whole staff training is not as high level as probably the observation feedback. So at your place, you have a PD binder, and I apologize it's so large, but it is just full of information about the services the professional development specialists provide at each school site. So I don't want to say that this is a professional development binder, because I'm looking at Nautica, and she's part of that team at Creekside, for example. She's the principal, there's the assistant principal, the IAC, and the professional development specialists form a team to support teachers in the way they need to be supported. I don't know if you want to add anything, Nautica. Okay, so one of the things that she looks at is she's seeing things in her walkthroughs, and she might bring those up in their team meetings as they develop their approach. It's a very critical piece, because every bit of training that her teachers participate in, her professional development specialist, and probably her IAC is a part of that as well. So that is a constant coming back around, because we know that drive-by professional development does not work. You can't do one and done and then expect people to change their practices. We know that the highest contributing factor to student achievement is the classroom teacher. So we work a lot, we work really hard developing that. So you see that reflected here in this binder. This summarizes last year, but we always focus forward. They're already developing their end of the year reports this year. Okay, so one of our initiatives also to really promote high student engagement, great attendance, and math and science achievement is our STEAM plans. So we are really excited about our STEAM definition. You all know this. Igniting innovation and expression through interdisciplinary instruction has been our definition of STEAM for a couple of years now. So one of the things that there are 5 big things that we're doing this year to really start to get STEAM really rolling. One, of course, is to continue to get our teachers trained. We have a relationship with UCR where teachers can earn 12 quarter units to become STEAM certified. We have a very rigorous course, or it's actually 4 courses. It's 3 kind of regular courses and then a capstone project. And it's vetted by UCR, it's graduate level, and the teachers who go through these trainings immediately start applying what they're learning to their classroom. We had 80 teachers just come out for a training or for a meeting to see if they'd be interested in doing it. We have over 100 teachers already trained and certified. They're implementing those strategies now in their classrooms. So we're really seeing a shift and change in the teaching, especially since we've now almost 2 years since we've had Chromebooks. Also, our partners are UCR, NASA's JPL. We have Dr. Brandon Rodriguez coming out for Thanksgiving break. He's going to be doing problem-based learning, and then he's also going to be doing the ever-popular Lunar Rock certification. So teachers who go to this training are allowed to have lunar rocks, real moon rocks in their room, and evidently Dr. Rodriguez is only one of 3 people in the whole world who's certified to do this, and we have him right here in our backyard. He's actually in Pasadena, but he's coming to us. And then we have the Hedemic Group in Pasadena, which is an extremely inspiring business that develops, it's quintessential STEAM. It's science, it's technology, it's engineering, it's arts, and it's math, where they develop experiences such as rides at Disneyland. They also are the architects of the World War II Museum in New Orleans. They have done things at the World Trade Center. So they're an amazing partner to have. They happen to be related to one of our PD specialists. The owner is her uncle.
I have a quick question. How are you measuring that this training is increasing student achievement?
We're going by teacher anecdotal evidence at this juncture in time, but we are looking at those teachers who have taken the training and looking at their test scores.
And it shows an increase in student achievement in math?
Yes. So we recently won the NEA Foundation STEAM grant, and implementation is now underway to work through math and science achievement. We're also doing cross-curricular development, training, coaching, and buying more STEAM materials. We also have 2 STEAM pathways. There are 6 schools, and those schools have developed specific goals that are measurable for their STEAM plans. Those are across curricular areas, but also based on STEAM components such as digital citizenship, etc. Those are underway. In February, we have our STEAM Unity Expo, where we have an opportunity for our community to come in, interact with our students and teachers, and help our students aspire to STEAM careers. Some of the opportunities that kids get to see are things I think they would never have thought of. such as our sheriff's department, the forensics department. And it's a great opportunity for them to see what they're doing related to STEAM. Also, we have STEAM learning labs popping up all over the district. Again, these are one of these models that are it's kind of more on the demo lesson level, but it's also an opportunity for our PD specialists to allow teachers to see what they can offer in terms of demo lessons, but also to expose students to STEAM and teachers to different teaching techniques. Any questions?
I'd like to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board President, can we take 3 minutes?
How much more do we have?
Just the student.
Just one, just a student?
It's up to you.
And then who's going to talk? I thought we had 160 slides.
We have 108.
108.
We're on number 108.
We're at the end of it.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So if we can listen to the student and then maybe we can take a break, come back for comments or whatever? Okay.
This evening, we presented a lot of data. You saw a lot of graphs. You saw a lot of numbers. You heard a lot about the programs, the services that we're providing to teachers, to staff. But we're going to end tonight by hearing if this is even making a difference. So let's hear a student tonight, a student voice, and he's going to talk about his educational journey so far. So that's how we're going to end this presentation. And I'd like to introduce Alexis
Maribel,
Puente.
I wanted to add, may I?
Yes.
I asked Alexis to be here tonight because I think one of the things I wanted the board to hear, and Alexis, you're going to do this, is I think you need to know where students come from and how far they go in our district. And when you look at Alexis, you may think that he's always lived a prize life, but he's going to share with you his life, and he's going to do so in a very detailed way that demonstrates his proficiency and his mastery of his learning. He's much different today than he was when he began in MVUSD, but it's what happens here, and he's the transformation. He is what we do all of this for and why we do it. Thank you.
No, thank you, all of you guys. I think it's a privilege to be here, and I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity to share part of my story and something that Esperanza, when she was working with me for this speech, she brought to my attention that everyone really has a story. And I'm just fortunate to share part of mine, and I'm so thankful. So this speech was actually for a scholarship, a Hispanic scholarship, and I shaped it to fit a conclusion of a keynote speaking that me and Dr. Kadziora gave in Baltimore, Maryland, and it was an amazing experience. So I hope you guys like it, and I'm Alexis Puente from Valley View High School, a senior. It would be cliche and common for me, being part of the Hispanic community, to state that college education is important because of my past, where I came from, and the circumstances that challenged and molded my very being. Though this statement holds truth, to me, a college education is more imperative because of how it can impact my future. Throughout all of my elementary and middle school education, I was the child who got in trouble. Referrals, suspensions, fights, and riots. Anything you can think of, really. On one specific occasion, I started a massive fight between two different middle schools. I was a kid never engaged in class, regularly disrupting. It progressed from cussing at my kindergarten teacher to throwing pencils and talking back and trashing the restrooms and pantsing my peers and drawing inappropriate pictures, and the list is unceasing. I just simply did not care about my education. It got to the extent where my vice principal actually had to come to my house to speak with my parents. This behavior and failure were prevalent in every single area of my life. Then, in 8th grade, as it was approaching and my mind began to visualize the future, it was not an abrupt shift, but rather one that had and is undergoing a process. I began to ponder on how my future would be, and as of that instance, it really wasn't pleasing. I remember vividly during my 8th grade PE class, I was sitting down crisscross on the cold cement that had been lying where the shade of the roof covered an outdoor basketball court. Since PE testing was coming up, my teacher, Mr. Jolliffe, was explaining to the PE period that they were going to offer some type of award called the Presidential Award. This award was given to those who passed the exam and met higher requirements. One of the prerequisites actually was to run a mile in about 6 minutes and 48 seconds. In 8th grade, I didn't have the proper running shoes, clothes, or equipment to prepare, and to be really honest, I wasn't really in shape. Part of the cause was because I never wanted to run a mile because I was always rebelling. However, during this time, I was learning to use what I did have to get where I want. I began to train for the mile. At my school, for the kids who needed to make up their mile that we would run on Mondays for PE, they had the option to redo their mile on a Wednesday. I would run with those people, those students. This time, not because I was in trouble, but because I was training in hard, unbendable, worn-out basketball shoes. My coach would tie me along with the other students making up the mile. It was challenging to get to school in the mornings to train because I don't live with my dad, and my only source of transportation was my single mother who works in the mornings to raise a family of 6. I would ride my bike or skateboard to get to school a little over 2 miles every day. The worst part, it was all uphill. The last mile I ran 2 days before the exam, I beat my record, 6 minutes and 43 seconds. I remember walking up the steps from the track field next to the very teacher that I didn't like or respect in 7th grade. I remember he looks at me in the eyes and he tells me, "It's a pleasure to see you run." Further on, during 8th grade, I took a computer science class and became quickly fascinated with the field. Our class was visited by cloud architect Lynn Liggett, who developed a coding curriculum for K-12. Many of the kids in the class were going to Canyon High School, and because the class wanted to continue to grow in computer science, we wanted to take AP Computer Science. By the way, I never knew what an AP class was until my friends told me that it would save money and build my GPA, but I went with it because I wanted new challenges. At the time, Valley View High School was the only one that had AP Computer Science, and for some reason, I had the genius idea of emailing the superintendent of Moreno Valley Unified School District, Dr. Kedziora, so he can get me a transfer to Valley View High School to take AP Computer Science class. He seemed to be someone who could do something about it, so I contacted him. His response was extremely supportive. I remember he replied, "I will go personally to the registration center and transfer your name." I felt overwhelmed by the amount of support and affirmation I received. After I thanked him, he replied, "My pleasure. Please let me know if you need anything else." And of course, I ended up giving him a list of other students who wanted to take AP Computer Science class at Valley View High School, along with a couple of other favors. I didn't even end up taking the course at Valley View High School. I was fortunate enough to take it at the University of California, Riverside during the summer. During 9th grade, I was reminiscing on some of these impactful events and recalled how I beat my mile. And it was not so much of the running my teacher, Mr. Jolliffe, had the pleasure in seeing, but the determination that I was displaying. I thought to myself, I don't want to struggle in life like I have nor how my family has. I saw bad examples as good examples of what not to be and refocused my determination. When I think about the effort and perseverance that goes into my education as a Latinx student, I perceive generations being redirected to success and abundance through modern standards of excellence. When I consider how valuable my education is to me, I notice my 3-year-old brother with his Nemo backpack aspiring to follow my steps and set a higher bar than me to live an educated life. And it is not a competition, it's generational progress. Because it's never been about me or someone else, but rather everyone. When I reflect on how vital college is to me, I see myself astonished by the amount of information I didn't acknowledge in a lecture hall of 500 students with the same ambition to become and grasp something greater. It's crucial because it's a beacon of light and hope, a hope that has transformed the way I think, communicate, learn, and practice. I have become a healthier me. Now I can honor those around me with a more salubrious version of myself because I did not settle for ignorance. And still, I must admit, I'm still not at perfection, yet that's never been the goal. Excellence has. I'm not neglecting where I came from. Contrary to that, I utilize my parents' struggle and determination to fuel my courage, to surpass the very predominant failure that has been embedded as inadequacy in tradition. It's a place of comfort and complacency, truly. What I'm expressing is collegiate education is something that has had to become vital in my life, because education was never something advised to me. The truth is, if it wasn't for God's grace, I would have been in the streets right now, doing drugs, maybe even having to drop out of high school because I have to pay child support. That's even if I would have cared. However, now I understand. The minor goal that I set to PR in my mile for the presidential award was going to be a small reflection of the larger goals I would accomplish in life for his glory. Little did I know that the hill I would strenuously attempt to surpass every day to get to school was a process unfolding that is now developing into this extended metaphor that is flowing in abundance. The outcome of this process has been the revelation that life should not just be lived, but lived in excellence and transparency, by not forgetting where your joy and foundation originate from. Education is something I yearn to pursue through a PhD in chemical engineering, but most importantly, beyond a degree. It's a lifestyle that I am warmly embracing. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so let's take.
Y'all to know, I guess it's true. They stood for him in Baltimore, gave him a standing ovation. But when you're at home, you're never at, it's harder to get a.
Alexis, you did an outstanding job.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back for comments.
It's harder to get a standing ovation when you're at home.
right, let's finish this session. We're gonna go through. Are we ready? Are we ready, board members? I'm ready. Okay, we're gonna finish this session. So we're gonna go into. Did you have anything else, Dr. Katsura, or can we go into the public comment, board comments?
Yeah, I'm the last person to speak.
I know, but I mean, as far as the
Okay,
presentation, we're done. Okay.
Done, Mr. O'Kane.
All right, Mr. Peden, please.
If I can just pass it along until maybe I can speak a little bit later in the comments. I'm not prepared. I was still doing my paperwork.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. I
I
couldn't
can
hear what
go.
you said.
I was just saying I'm going to pass it I'll come back.
All right, Mr. Peden would like to give his comments in a minute. So I was impressed with the growth in the test scores in some of our schools, and so many of them. Obviously, we have a long ways to go, but we're working on it a little bit at a time. It's like the little engine that could. Every year, you're pushing up a little bit further. Slide 45 was about social emotional well-being of students. A little slogan on that slide said, be student-centered. And I think that's a good motto for all of us, to be student-centered, whatever we're doing. The CASP test results, I guess that goes along with the growth. Upward trend over the last 5 years, and I was impressed with all of the work of Glenn Allegre in putting that together. I wouldn't even know where to start, and quite honestly was lost during part of it. So thank you for putting all that together. It was great. I think I've already mentioned level reading. I'm glad that we're moving in that direction. It's something when I was a teacher, I always was pushing for that, so I'm glad that we're going in that direction. And to see how well our dual immersion students are doing, obviously the dual immersion parents are involved. That's why their kids are in dual immersion, because they wanted them to be in that program. They're involved parents. Involved parents have their students do better. I don't think there's any question about that. I'm also glad to hear how well we're doing in our preschool and continues to grow. And I'd like to see more and more growth in preschool. We know that preschool is so important in children learning the things that they need to know before they get to kindergarten and first grade. So thank you for having a great preschool program. I saw when we were talking about PD, I noticed there were a lot of partnerships with different people, with JPL, with the group in Pasadena. I think those partnerships allow our students to apply math in real world situations. And that's what gets them out there and gets them enthusiastic and encourages them to find an interest in something, is to see those real world situations in. I know we heard Mr. Rodriguez speak before and how good he was and so excited about the things that he's doing. And I hope that he can pass some of that excitement on to the teachers who will move that along to their students. And thank you, Alexis. Did he already? Thank you for your great comments. We appreciate you. You're a great representative for our school district. You're what we want all of our students to be. So thank you so much.
Okay, I want to begin by thanking all the directors tonight. The data was excellent, the presentation, the information, and I thank you for the work that you do. I have a headache, so I'm hoping I don't forget anything. I definitely agree that it's great to see the growth going forward. That's what we wanted to do, and it does take time. But with the work and the focus that we're doing now, I think we're going to see even larger growth next time. I just made some notes. I'm glad that the sites are sharing best practices with each other and learning from each other. Ramona pointed out, and I know most of the schools, the importance of relationships, which relates with our students is being connected to school. We know that the kids do better academically as well as socially, emotionally if they feel connected. Some of the key things that just jumped out makes, I have background instruction and curriculum, so I, note these things. The strong PLCs, that came out, that if you have a strong PLC at a school site and they work together, that's where the power is. The focus in PD and stuff on first best instruction, because we know, and then hopefully we don't have to keep doing the same thing time and time again. The power, the grade, the goal setting, the teacher goals, and I loved when you mentioned about the students setting their own goals. And also research-based strategies, and looking at assessing what we're doing, and if it's working, great. And if not, what else can we do? The flex days, focusing on measuring the interventions, because we have a lot of interventions, but we don't always know, are they working? Are they making a difference? Again, I made wrote this down twice to thank everyone, and the PD, the work, and the focus, but on the curriculum, development of a scope and sequence, so that we all are on the same page and we're headed in a direction, and we have that curriculum calibration, and that vertical articulation. As we know, the one challenge for education is we are always going to have some students that don't get it. We would love everyone to get it. And so, I know we have a lot of things in place. There's no perfect answer for those kids, but I know the schools are working really hard with their interventions, doing the tutoring and that to try to make sure that we have no student left behind. And I don't want to be amiss by saying that as we focus on student achievement, it's everyone, because we focused a lot on what happens in the classroom, because we know that's where the most powerful thing is. But it's also, our classified workers, having safe schools, clean schools, the support outside the classroom, inside the classroom, the administrative work, the nutrition. It just takes all of us, to make sure that we keep that upward spiral. So again, thank you for what everyone does, and, good information.
First of all, I want to thank all of the presenters. I think everyone did a wonderful job. I mean, you did a great job doing some research, and then taking the time to go slow enough where even I picked up on some of the great things that we've been doing recently. So thank everyone for preparing for tonight, and for the hard work that you guys put in every day. One of the things that I did as I was listening to the presenters, if you don't mind me hearkening back a couple of years ago, and I was just checking to see if Mr. Barney was still here, and now he's looking. I want to say something about Mr. Barney that I'm sure my colleagues don't know about. Jesus knows, and Dr. Kessior knows. But when we're looking at the scores that we have today, and we're hearing the presentations that was presented today, and again, we thank the presenters for everything that they did. We thank them for the growth that we could see. But I don't think Mr. Barney would mind if I use him as an example, just to show us where we came from. Sometimes we don't even pay attention to that. We think it's always been that way. And I'm bringing that up because I was start thinking about myself, where I came from. I came from a segregated school, and then eventually they integrated to the white school, and so now they have white flight. Anybody know what that means? Mm-hmm. Yes. So we're back to the segregated school again. And the reason I'm saying all those things is because when I first started, Badger Springs was one of those schools that no one wanted their children to go to, really, except those people that live there. And so, what are we going to do about changing it? And you guys heard what they had to say about Badger Springs tonight. Everybody's smiling. Back when I started, Mr. Hogan told me one day, he said, "CJ, I'm glad you're here to help me get a golden bell." Well, Badger Springs, they now have a golden bell. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because I want to make sure we understand when we see a presentation like this, It's fine to say, okay, well, so when are you going to do this and when are you going to do that? But if you stop and think about just in the last, was it 7 years? Yeah. 7 years? 7 years, I'm not going to even talk about how far back Badger Springs was compared to other schools. But they were so far back that we brought people in to help us, to help them to get better. And so when you look at what happened then, you can say, well, Mr. Barney, new principal, if I was Mr. Barney, I would be embarrassed. He was never embarrassed. He was glad he got the assignment, but he was more than glad that he had that challenge. And everybody knows what has happened since then. But I remember, I think we used to meet, what, once a week or something? And once a month? And then we'd go around and inspect, and we'd, write on this chart where we are and where we have to go. But here's the key, though. Start reaching out to the parents in those areas. And those parents realize that there wasn't very much that they could do, but they know that they can give the incentive to their kids to do better and to go to school. And that's where it started. In addition to that, Mr. Barney put together a team whereby all of the teachers that were teaching changed their attitudes about the area that they were in, the students that they were teaching. So I bring that up to make sure that we understand. So as we watch tonight, as I said, I hearken back to those days, and I see this. Yeah, we still have some things to do. I like to call this at halftime. And we're up by 10 points. And those that knows about football, 10 points is good. You go in the locker room and you're patting yourself on the back, but then the coach is going to still get on you because you still got another half to go, and you still have to work hard. So the bottom line is I appreciate everything that we're doing here, not that anybody else don't appreciate, but I know where we came from. And when you can take a Badger Springs and you can take a Mr. Barney and bring him in and tell him this is the challenge that you face with, I want you to do better, and oh, by the way, I want you to get a golden bell as well. And that's what has happened here in Moreno Valley Unified. And when you have every middle school with a golden bell, go what? School to watch, I'm sorry. I'm thinking golden bell, man, I'm my way out. School to watch, thank you. If you have that, school to watch, it's a time to pat yourself on the back and say, yes, we're still at halftime, but we're only up by 10, and we still we have another half to go. So I say all that to say this, I appreciate what I saw tonight. Yes, there's some things that we're going to do better, because we've already said that. But let's not forget how we got here. And it wasn't a long time ago, it was just a short few years ago that, again, Mr. Barney and I'm using him because I know he's here and he doesn't mind me doing this. But I'm sure he realizes the hard work that was put in to get us here. Yes, so we still got some things to do, but I do appreciate all of the hard work that everybody put in then and we continue to put in. You just don't get that many awards unless you work hard to get those. The rest of I'm going to skip. Oh, yeah, I mentioned already about I had it on the very bottom, Port Arthur white flight. I already said that. I guess everybody already know what that means, white flight, right? Those kids are doing pretty good, but they can do a lot better. Now you would say, well then why don't you move to where the white people went? Who's got that kind of money to move up there? They open up a whole new community, and nobody's got that type of money. So it's going to always happen. But the thing to do is where you are, do the very best that you can for the students that you have, and you let them know how much you care for them. And I think that's what's happening here. Thank you.
So I think I know there's some urgency here. Number one, I want to thank you everybody for doing this hard work and putting all this presentation. I mean, 109 slides. It's a lot of work. So number one, just being able to get all of this information as a new board member is crucial to the work that we do. And we can't do this work without this information. And I am excited and encouraged that we have data that's tracking the things that we need to track. I do have a few concerns though, right? I have concerns that the vast majority of our students are not meeting standards, okay? and we need, there's some urgency there. We've got to turn that around. You know, most of my training comes from a place where, you know, our families and our students that are socially, economically disadvantaged, right? We know there's a correlation to poverty and economic and educational outcomes. We know that, right? We know that. But when we look at our data, those that don't have any that are not socioeconomically disadvantaged, and those that are about the same. So my question, and one of the things that I was hoping that we could dive into today, however, I understand that we first need to lay out all the data and understand what we have in front of us, which I appreciate we did today. But what I'm hoping is as we move forward as a Board of Education, that we can begin, and with all of you, because you guys are at the ground level. So you have an understanding of what's really going on, and you can really help to explain the data, which we haven't been able to do. And we can't move forward and get behind in terms of this urgency to correct this issue. And it is an issue. Our community believes it to be an issue. And we need to make sure that our scores are on the other side. I mean, that's just the reality. And we can justify in these sort of things, but we've got to do better. But the only way we do better is if we can explain the data. So I'd love an opportunity with all of you, as well as the Board of Education, to dive in to really look at how do we explain this so that we can move forward as one single unit for the betterment of our community, for the betterment of our students. And so we can do exactly why we are all still here at, what time is it? Past 8 o'clock, right? I mean, clearly you're committed. You've spent, I'm sure, hours and hours just preparing this presentation to give us all of this data. 3 hours, right? And I'm sure you wouldn't mind staying another 2 hours to have more discussion with the Board of Education to dive into these things. But I'm told you all have lives, and that might not be a good idea. So, you know, with that said, I do believe there's urgency. I don't think I'm saying anything that everybody doesn't already know. But I would love an opportunity to dive into all of this so we can dive into the data, explain the data, so that we can make really informed decisions for our community and our schools to turn this around and do it quickly. Because I do believe that things don't just happen, things happen just, right? There's always a reason, there are always solutions. The whole presentation today was about things that we're doing great that's creating these patterns of growth. So that establishes that there are things that we can do in this district to turn this around. So I want to identify more of what those are so that we can dive right in and have solid, tangible investments into our education in the right areas to be able to get these scores up and ensure that all of our young people are where they need to be. So I'll just leave it there, but I do want to thank everybody for their time, and I do appreciate all of you. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you to my colleagues for the comments. And I want to say to all of you, thank you so much for the work that you did to put this presentation together. And thank you for what you do every single day. I know I heard from Dr. Katsura that it takes a lot of work to put this together. So I heard you clearly, Dr. Katsura. So I understand. It's a lot of work to put these presentations together. And I really, really appreciate you, all of you had the part to it, and I appreciate what you did. And I also appreciate that you presented to us, or at least to me, in a language that I can understand. Because you put the slides in such a way that it's easy for me to understand, even the charts, maybe because I like numbers, I can understand them. And I appreciate the explanation of how to read them and all those things. But I think it's great that I can understand what you were presenting, but I also understand and know that this is just a small piece, a small sample of what you do every single day. So you came this evening prepared with this presentation and showed us here, this is what is happening in the district, but what happens every single day behind the scenes, it's a lot more than this. So I truly appreciate all that work. And obviously, a lot of people in the community don't know because, once again, they're not here and they don't get to see all this information. They don't get to see these presentations and the work that goes into putting it together. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for spending all this time for this. It is important to know. It is important for us to have this information, and so we can continue working together. But again, I learn because every time I see these presentations, I learn a lot. Of course, I'm not an expert on all the curriculum side and all the different areas. I know a little bit about school finance, and I can live with that. But everything that you present to me tonight is great, because I get to see the sample. Now, one of the comments that Ms. Kerr, the principal of Canyon Springs, made, which I really like, and I think it is important for us to remember all the time, is she said that she was very mindful of making sure that the teachers or the staff at the school had the tools that they needed to do the work that they had to be done. So I think as board members also have to keep that in mind, that we need to know what the tools are that you need to move forward in the work that needs to be done. Obviously you're doing a lot of great things, and there's always room for improvement. So how can we as board help in the continuous development of that great work so that we can help our students? That's bottom line. We want our students to be successful. So how do we support you? How do we support your work so that whatever needs to be done, gets done? You need tools. You need, I don't know. You need materials. And the one thing that I know it's needed all the time, and I think you do an excellent work, is through the professional development. It's continuously happening here. And I think it is a lot more than what is happening in other districts as far as professional development. So, I've always supported professional development, and I'm happy to see that happening. So, I'm very excited, very happy, and very thankful for all the professional development that takes place, because I have attended some of that too, and it's just great. So I truly appreciate that piece. But what else can we do to help? I'm very excited of what I see today as compared to what I saw 17 years ago when I joined the board. This is way much better than what it was at the time. So a lot of progress has been made, and I have to say that a lot of progress has been made in the last 2 years, 3 years, or 9 years, and we know why. We know because of the leadership, because of the vision, because of the changes, because of the implementation of different strategies and programs, and looking after what is out there that we can bring to our district and implement. But the most important piece, I think, is the fact that sometimes, some years, and I don't know the exact number of years from that point up until now, we have, through the leadership in all of you in your positions, we have made an effort to listen to the community, to listen to what the needs of the community are, and do whatever we need to do to meet those needs. And the needs vary, and we see that in the different numbers in the different schools. Of course, it was explained earlier, but when we look at those needs, and when we look at what is happening in the different schools, we also see that we are day by day addressing those equity issues that were mentioned earlier. And I have to tell you, if you don't know this, Mr. Johnson and I are representing the district at the state level in an equity network. That's what they call it, equity network. It's only 10 districts in that equity network, 2 board members from each of 10 districts from over 1,000 districts in the state. We were invited to be part of this network because of the work that is taking place in this district. They wanted to hear what was being done here. So we have been attending monthly meetings with those other districts and sharing what is happening here, learning from others. But the point is that we were invited because they wanted to know what Moreno Valley was doing as far as addressing equity issues. So I think it is happening. Again, there's always room for improvement, but I'm extremely pleased with what I see, all the different programs, all the different strategies, all the different areas of professional development, and on and on and on. And then one area that we have stressed, through in the English learners programs and all the other different programs, all the different areas, is how do we engage the parents? And there's a reason why we want to engage the parents, right? And not just the parents, but the entire family. How do we engage the entire family, the family engagement? And if we remember the LCFF concepts, priority 3 under LCFF is family engagement. So there's a reason why it's included there, because it is effective, it is needed, it's critical. So I'm also pleased to see that all the different areas and all the different strategies that have been implemented through the district to engage the parents and the families. That's a challenge, and I recognize that at all levels, especially at the high school level, because the families at the high school level are not as engaged as they are at the elementary level. I guess that's natural. I don't understand why, but anyway, so it's there. The opportunities are there. So once again, thank you for all the information that you provided this evening, but more especially, thank you for all the work that you do. I myself, speaking for myself, I'm very pleased, very thankful for all the work that is happening. We're way ahead of where we were time ago, and we are way ahead of where many districts are. When we look at our numbers, when we look at our statistics, when we look at all the different pieces, we're way ahead of many other districts. We have work to do, yes, and we, as far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to continue supporting you in any way I can, and I'm hoping that my colleagues feel the same way. We're here to support you, and just, through our superintendent, we continue having the communication and see how we can support. And do we need to establish policies, change policies, delete policies, whatever the case is, but for my piece, for my part, I'm ready to continue, because the work that is taking place here is just amazing. So thank you so much for that. Thank you. Dr. Katsura.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the core planning team that did such an excellent job in this delivery and execution of the data. We haven't always had all of this here, and many of you have been here and seen different things, but I just want you to know how proud I am of you and how much work you put into this, and it means a lot to our district and our community. We're so fortunate to be represented by so much expertise, that you bring this surgical expertise into the workplace, and you know exactly what to do and how to do it. And I'm grateful when I get to work with you and I get to sit with you, which isn't often because of other things. But Mr. Holguin, I want to hurry, but then again I don't, because I have to point out a few things, because there's a lot of people listening and they're watching and they're texting me, and we all agree that urgency is important, but we all know about change, and we have to look at what's happening here, but we have to also think about how we are doing it. I'm reading a book right now by Simon Sinek called Infinite Game. And this is not a finite game we're playing here. It's an infinite game. Because it's not about us. It's about what the future holds, what children need. And I want you to know that sometimes we look at like exact things and we think that's where we've got to be. But when I hear Alexis Puente get up, he is an example, Nautica, of a student that you had in kindergarten or TK at your school. And what most people don't realize, Nautica, is that at Creekside Elementary School, your kindergarten classes change over 2 and 3 times before the end of the year. The same students who began are not the ones who started there. Am I correct? Yeah. So you deal with a highly mobile transient population. But you never complain, and you always just keep working with them, who's ever there. And I think that's important, because equity is not about giving everyone the same thing. It's about giving everyone what they need. And so we know in each school, in each community, there are so many different things that people need. And that's what we do by the uniquenesses that are provided here. Now, I'm fortunate that I just want you to know that I couldn't be prouder of our professional development. It's the reason why we're getting a golden bell from the California School Boards Association. When the board member that came here from Raleigh visited, he cried in both instances and said, does the district know how fortunate they are to have all this? Because we don't have this. And he wants to bring people back. Today, the other day I found out Northridge Elementary School is going to qualify for a California Gold Ribbon School. I don't know if everyone knows this, but only 8 elementary schools in Riverside County qualify for that distinguished award. 8 elementary schools, and one of them is in Moreno Valley. Now, yes, it's a magnet school, but I want to say that the children who transfer in there are the children who could have attended any elementary school. But again, parents chose that school, and I'll point that out over and over when we see these things, which is why we implemented parent choice this year, and we see more of it. But 8 elementary schools in Riverside County, and one of them is in Moreno Valley. 2 are in Desert Sands, 2 are in Alvord, 2 are in Corona Norco, one's in Palm Springs, and one's in Romaland. There are districts that surround us that don't have any. But yet we talk about how they're performing and what we're doing. But it's a compass for us, and it gives us some direction because there are so many great things happening. I do want you to know, and I've got to point this out because, when you look at our language arts, Glenn, one of the things that I know is that from our increase last year, 402 more students are on track this year than there were last year. That's significant. 402 more students. I do want to point out that achievement has lagged in California on the CASP, and we realize there's more to do there. But what I want you to know is that we grew more than the state and the county in language arts. We grew 3.2%, and the county overall grew 1.4%, and the state grew 1%. We grew 3.2%. That's huge. I mean, these children, getting them to read, getting books in their hands, helping their families know the importance and the value of it. It's huge. Yeah. I mean, what I see in preschool, what I see happening. But I want the teachers out there to know what they do matters, and they are making a difference. And, with that kind of progress, if we can continue that, it's just important to build upon that and to seize that. In mathematics, we grew more than the county and the state in mathematics last year. Now, I looked at this because districts didn't grow a lot. Many of you that read about achievement know that a lot of districts plateaued. They had no growth. 1.9%. The state of California only grew 1% in math. We grew almost 2%. This county grew 1.3%. Now, I want you to know we look at similar sized districts, and 37, there's 1,000 districts in California. 73 of those have more than 20,000 students. 60 of those districts have fewer than 45,000 students. And 37 of those districts are of a similar size and have a similar unduplicated rate as Moreno Valley Unified School District. 37 of the 1,000. So if you compare, you've got to look at who you can compare yourself to. And when we looked at that in those 37 districts, you know where Moreno Valley ranked in growth last year? We were number 2 of the 37. And that's important for our people to know because it's hard to do what we do. It's not easy to get to where we are, and we have to celebrate the successes and know that the children of the community and the families value what we do, and we take them further than they've ever been. We had 869 students who scored fewer students who scored at level 1 in 2019 than in 2015. So that says students are moving. That was in English language arts. We had 1,230 students who scored at level 1 in 2019, that fewer students than in 2015. Now I could go on with this because I've done an extensive look at this, and Glenn, you've helped me tremendously. But I think the areas that we want to celebrate in is that more students are meeting state standards in ELA and math. Our district improved in ELA and math when many districts didn't. Our district improved more in ELA than the county and the state, and our district improved more in math than the county and the state. When looking at CAS BLA growth in 2019, we ranked 2 among 37 similar school districts. In English language arts, 869 fewer students scored at level 1 in 2019 than in 2015. And in math, 1,230 fewer students scored at level 1 in 2019 than in 2015. We do have areas to improve, and our students are not performing well in math as ELA, and our students did not grow as much as in math as they did in ELA. But we have to continue to work on that. And I want you to know that we are here to work together, and we each know that we can do better. Nautica, when I think of your school, what you've taken it from, and the mobility and the issues that you face every day, what Jason Barney did at Badger Springs when he was there, when we came here to Moreno Valley, like you said, Mr. Johnson, nobody wanted to go to school there. Now people transfer into it. Yeah. They choose that school to go to. Weren't we just talking today, Esperanza, about Badger Springs, what it's doing there? So I just want you to know yes, there's an urgency, and yes, we have to do better, but we are doing better. And I think we're doing a lot better than the county and the state in similar schools. And I'm proud of that. But I'm really proud of the people here that are committed to working here. Mr. Johnson, when you talked about white flight, we're a perfect example of that in this district. I moved here 26 years ago, and it was mostly a white community. Today, it's no longer that. It's mostly Hispanic and African American. But, we live here, and we continue to say that we can do better, and we continue to work on that. I have to let the people know, the teachers and the classified staff who work here, that we value the work they do, and we value what you contribute to them, the support you give them, because it takes a lot, Nautica Neal, to go in there every day and face children that sometimes don't come with things. Their Chromebooks are broken, all the impediments that happen, but to overcome those and help them and take their hand and say, we're going to help you, and we're going to do it together. And so, Lilia Villa, I couldn't be prouder of our English Learner Department. We lead the county, we lead the state in what we do, and it's recognized. People come visit here. So they don't come visit here and they don't ask us to do things because we're not doing what we could be doing. We're doing some things that people didn't thought could be done. And when I came here 9 years ago, I was asked, what am I going to do about the graduation rate? And I didn't have a clue. But I did what I showed you, Esperanza, that notebook with 3,000 Fs. And I talked to counselors, but it was one kid at a time, one person at a time, just like the P3 initiative. It's 8 schools and then more, and they add to that. And so knowing that, we all can come back tomorrow proud of what we did tonight. And I just want to thank you for not giving up, but being encouraged and giving kids that lift that they need and the families they need. Because children in our community need sometimes more, and sometimes more than we thought they needed. I met with a young man this afternoon from Moreno Elementary School, and I loved his parents, and I loved the family. And, it wasn't, I don't want to say like what exactly happened, but I just want to say that we get opportunities every day, and each of you sees those opportunities, and you help children become better than they thought they could be, which is what Alexis Puente, he grew up without knowing a lot of this. So I'm going to close by saying that today we had a principals meeting, and I want to reinforce that Diego's death has certainly impacted our school community, and our hearts go out to the family for their loss. And today we passed out the solutions to all the principals that we came up with at Landmark Middle School. And we asked each principal to take these solutions and to look at them to see how they could incorporate those learnings in their school and work with their students to help develop a kinder, respectful, safer community. And on November the 22nd in our school district, from 8 to 9:30, we will all be doing kindness and respect and united hearts in helping our students know and value the purpose and the sense of why we're here, because we need a unity among us and with us that helps us lift to rise so that we can do the work we need to do. And our principals were committed to it. I was telling different people today, not one principal, when I mentioned this, they're going to involve their students, and we'll invite the board to this. This is part of a campaign. And but you know, when they got this list, they started to look at what they're doing at their schools and how they're incorporating this. So we're not afraid of work. We're not afraid of the challenges. We are encouraged by our progress, and we will continue to work together to make our district be sought after, and our parents want to go here. And so I just want to thank the board for your support, and I want to thank our teachers and our classified staff and our community for what they provide every day as an endless opportunity to provide them with something that like I said, it's an infinite game. It's not finite, because there's so many challenges, and we have so many ways to get there. So thank you.
Board, can I just ask, if you don't mind, since we have everybody in the room, we don't get these opportunities very often. So I'm hearing a lot about challenges, and from the framework of student achievement, what are those challenges, and what's our the biggest challenge that we're facing as a district to be able to move the needle on these issues? I mean, is there some insight?
I think if you look at the 37 similar districts that I told you we ranked 2 in, that one of them is poverty. And it's very difficult to overcome students that lack resources. And we have a wellness center here that serves thousands, it's at your school, serves thousands of parents who don't have food, they don't have clothing, they don't have shelter, and Catholic charities that serve those families. And so uniting those parents with those needs, just like the other day when we went on the visit with the Hewlett Foundation, one of the students that we brought with us on the tour said, "Dr. Kidzer, I need a bus pass." And he said, I didn't know they could do bus passes here. He said, I'm having trouble getting to school. And I didn't know he's having trouble getting to school. He hadn't told anybody, but that's sometimes what happens. So he stayed behind. Mr. Holguin helped him get the bus pass, and he got the bus pass, and now he's able to be more independent. But when you have poverty and you have 84% of your students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, or who have parents who have like Glenn said, Glenn Allegre, who have a high school education, one of them, you have challenges. Literacy is a challenge. Having students read books. Mr. Peden, when I visit homes, one of the things I notice is there could be one of those there, but there aren't books in the house, which is why we do the book giveaway in the summer, so kids have books to read. When you go to Target and you see how much books cost, and you see how much they are at Walmart or any store, sometimes people choose between books or food. And so those are challenges that face people. Another one is we have chronic absenteeism. Sometimes in TK and K and 1, you'll notice higher absences. And that's a challenge because sometimes people don't take those grades as seriously. And so kids stay home, and so we have to work on that. We have a higher African American population than other communities, and African American students, if you look at the history or just every statistic, they have not performed well in all communities. Yeah, but we also have a higher number of English learners. We have a higher number of foster youth. We have a higher number of homeless. But there's 37 districts out of the 1,000 in California that we're similar to. We're not like all the other districts. So 37 are like us of the 1,000 districts. That says something right there. And we share a similarity in that we, have students that come with many needs, and teachers who sometimes have to work harder to, remember last year when the core districts put out that data and it showed over time how kids perform here, and they like at Hidden Springs, the growth they made was higher than at other schools that had students who were not as, less resourced, but they did better here. And that's because you look at Hidden Springs, it's number 2 in the district in test scores, but it doesn't have the same challenges as Creekside. So every school has unique needs. If you look at Sunnymead Elementary, Marcia Locke, Dr. Locke, you worked there as an assistant principal, and you know every day what children come with there and how they struggle to get certain basic needs met. But it never diminishes the principal or the teachers there from moving forward or trying to get them to do more. It's only something that they have to understand, and then they have to keep working with the family. So there's a lot of different things, but those are some of them. And connection, like I'm going to tell you, 9 years ago, we were not connected with the African American community like we are today. We did not have African American parent councils. We did not have a group that met here, African American parents. And today they're contributing to our community and becoming greater, they're becoming more involved. The ELAC, that is another group that has, remained committed. In our dual immersion program, we encourage African American students to be in that program. We recruit them, whereas other districts, they don't do that. And we look for ways to link agendas and build coalitions so that we do move forward. And it's just a constant effort on behalf of everyone, because I think of Esperanza's daughter, who went to Sunny Meadows Elementary, and she was the valedictorian of Canyon Springs High School. I went back there this year and I showed the video of the AP. I showed the staff the AP video, advanced placement, and I didn't tell them that Helica was going to be in there. And they all went, she went here. Sometimes people don't know what people become. And so, because when you're working so hard, you just think, I hope they make it. But another piece of that is letting them know they did.
Let me just leave with this, and I'll be done. And one of the major things I think we all agree on is that poverty is one of our largest challenges, because in every single thing that Dr. Kidziora just mentioned, poverty is at the root, right? And so my question to the Board of Education, because I don't get this opportunity, right? We have issues with it. We can't talk to one another. And so the question I have for the rest of the Board of Education and the leaders in this community is, what are we doing about poverty?
When you get a chance, not tonight, but let us know what you're doing first so we can figure out, the route that we're going to take. Not now, later.
I will. I'd love to, actually.
Thanks.
I actually wrote an op-ed a couple months back about that.
Appreciate that.
I think, I don't have the answer to that question. If I had it, we would not be here tonight. But I think that one thing that we can do, that we are doing, is providing the services, educational services to the students that they deserve, regardless of where they are in the economic scale. So providing educational opportunities and aiming to make sure that they are well prepared for college, career, or whatever they decide to do. And I think that as we see the improvement on a daily basis of this district, I think that's the what we're providing to the students. And we don't look, there's some statistics you need to look at, low income and, free meals and all those kinds of things. But I think that when the students show up at school, regardless of what school it is, the principals are ready to provide the services, and it goes the same with all the teachers and all the staff that work there, classified, certificated, management, and everybody else. I think that's one of the reasons we all chose to be in this field, because we want to help the students regardless of who they are, regardless of where they come from, regardless of where they are in the scale. But having a single answer to that question, I think it's kind of difficult to answer here. But we can do the best we can to help them where they are. And one of the things that I think we're doing greatly here is listening to what those needs are at the moment and meeting those needs. The wellness center is one example, and the scholarships. I mean, how many millions of dollars of scholarships?
$83 million.
$83 million of scholarships. So it doesn't matter if they are low income or not. They're getting those opportunities, and then the access to higher education institutions, and access to different classes, access to arts, access to sports, access to stadiums. I mean, the facilities that are being remodeled here. I just see those as some examples of what we are doing at this point in time. To solve the issue itself, I don't know who can do that. I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things that I forgot to mention was that we didn't become AP District of the Year because we're not addressing poverty. Because we pay for our students to take the AP exam, and when we started paying for it, we didn't see a decrease in their passing rates. We saw an increase, and the College Board recognized that, and they told us that we were changing the lives of kids that live in poverty. And we also pay for college applications, so that a student can apply for 3 to 4 colleges, because we know the more they apply to, the more likely they'll have choices and get admitted and choose something they want. And so, I think that's another thing we do. But many of the things we wrote in our LCAP, our Local Control Accountability Plan, were to address the challenges that students face in our community and to provide them pathways and remove the barriers so that they could get to other things, like performing arts at the elementary school. We didn't have band a few years ago in elementary, and we have almost 1,000 kids in that program. We have art, music, and PE that's at 4th and 5th grade, but we didn't have choruses and bands at every school. So we've given kids equity and opportunity at our school so that whatever they need, they can get wherever they want it. And that helps kids get out of poverty. I mean, we heard a student tonight.
I'll just, Dr. Kizar, thank you for that in terms of equity, because I do think when we have the true definition of equity, it's the removal of all barriers, right? It's not just providing students with what they need, it's removing the barriers. And I recognize, and I didn't want to come off as I don't recognize the things that we're doing in terms of the AP exams and things like that. I think that's great. I mentioned that because that is our single most challenge, which is poverty. And I'm looking forward to expanding on that with all of you and everybody in this room about what are some creative things that we can do in this district to remove every barrier. And so, I mean, that was the point of that, to start having that conversation. We don't really get an opportunity as a board to really open up and have these difficult discussions. Usually what we do as a Board of Education is we start down here with Daryl's comments, because I'm the new board member, and we work our way down, and when it gets to Dr. Kidziora, the meeting's a wrap. But there's so much more substance and things that we really need to discuss. We need to address these challenges and have these conversations where we agree and where we disagree, so that we can really debate these issues to figure out what are we going to do and how are we going to do it. And that goes for everybody in this room, so that's just where I was with that. And I just wanted to kind of see if there's a possibility of creating a new norm where we're not just ending our meetings where we're just going down the line, but rather we're having an in-depth conversation and challenging one another about what we're not doing, about what we are doing, about what we have done. Because I think that's where true progress comes. And that's the process that I'm excited about being a part of. So I appreciate your time. And I do, Board President, I want to thank you for allowing me the time to talk. And even though we were getting ready to wrap up, you still allowed me time to get on the mic and express what I was thinking. And so I do want to thank you for your leadership on that, because other folks would just say, oh, we're wrapping up. Sorry you had your time. So I want to appreciate you for doing that in your leadership. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want you to know that, being the president doesn't mean that I have full control, and I'm not going to allow anybody to speak. You know, all of us have a voice, so I respect that, and I respect your opinions, and as I learn from them, I also learn from all of you here too. So thank you for expressing that opinion, and appreciate that. And I don't see anybody else approaching the microphone, so I think we're closing this conversation here. And lastly, I just want to say one thing. Thank you for looking. Oh, did you want to say something? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment, just from an administrator's point of view. When we work with our kids, we do our best to try and remove those barriers for kids with all the resources that the district and all of you provide to us, because there are many resources that you've already given us, tools that we can to unlock different things. Although the system is not perfect, and we'd be hard pressed to say any system is perfect. We do really work hard. We love our families, we love our students, and we only want the best, and we only want to see them succeed. And so whatever's in any one of our powers as principals that we can do, we certainly do it as much as we can and as hard as we can, because we push our kids because we want success for them the same way their families want success for them.
Thank you for saying that. And that leads to a perfect closing. Thank you for that commitment. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for having the data and for being able to read it and interpret it and utilize it in such a way that we can serve the students and the families in this district so that everybody can be successful. So with that, this meeting is adjourned at 8:52. Thank you so much.